Estamos então a menos de 5 minutos para a primeira partida do dia, seu escalão das júniores femininas. 5 minutes to first start of the day.
A very good morning and welcome along to the European Athletics live coverage of the European Champion Clubs Cross Country, coming to you from Albufeira in Portugal. Albufeira is a little overcast this morning, but temperatures are pretty good, as you can see there alongside the coast, pretty much in the middle of the Algarve. It is a beautiful course, as you see, 12 degrees there and cloudy. It will be dry throughout the morning and early afternoon. Bit of rain expected later on, but it is good running conditions at the São João Sports Club, which will be the host venue for this year's European Champion Clubs Cross Country. There is the competition schedule, 1 hour behind Central European time, getting underway with the under 20 women's at 10 a.m, 11 a.m. Central European time, followed by the under 20 men's, then the two senior races, and finishing off 12:45 local time, the mixed relay. There's a shot of some parts of the course. The teams can enter 6, run 4, and a max of 3 to score. That is the course. That is the longer lap. So that is the lap that will be used for each of the individual races, under 20 and seniors. And then we'll have a slightly different course for the relay later, a shorter course of 1500 meters or so a lap instead of 1800 and change. But there is early part of the lineup for the under 20 women's race, and teams from several nations and indeed clubs within the various nations competing here. Bottom of the list there is one to look out for, Katie Pye of Aldershot, Farnham District, the 18-year-old who was a European under-18 champion over 3,000 metres in 2024. There's some of the Irish crew and the Italians. And of course, Fenerbahce of Turkey won this title for the last 2 years. Dilek Koçak helping them to gold last year, or 2 years ago, with an individual gold as well, but she's not part of the lineup, of course, this year. But they do have, once again, impressive strength. The likes of Ian Adar, the 17-year-old, who was 10th in this event last year, and 14th at the European Under-20 Championships. So it'll be interesting to see how they go, but we'll get an idea of how the team competition is shaking out after a lap or two. Reminder that they will currently have the stretch run between this is the start line. It's a good stretch down to the finish line. I think it's 130 meters. Yep, just confirming that. So 130 meters down to the finish line, and then they will have 3 laps of just over 1,800 meters to sort themselves out. 5,260 meters in total is the race distance, as it will be for the under 20 men's. Seniors will race just over 9k. Distances, of course, equalised between the genders these days. There is a broad overview of the field as they stand on the start line. So you can see the Aldershot Farnham District vest is second from the right there, the familiar red, white and green strip of the English club, where Mick Woods, the coach, has produced many outstanding internationals over the years. And indeed, one of them is certainly in the form of Katie Pye, the 18-year-old who was 16:20 on the track for 5,000 meters last year. And they are on their marks. Seen a few false starts in cross-country races over the years. It's never a good thing, so let's hope they get away here at the first. No, now they're on their marks. Away they go for the under-20 women's race at the European Champions Clubs Cross Country. And as I mentioned, 130 metres down to the finish, 3 laps, and it is a very typically Portuguese course in terms of it is tight, it is technical, it is fast. It loops back on itself. It's great for spectators because it's very easy to follow the action, much like the course was at the European Cross Country Championships back in December in Lagoa. But it looks like they're setting off here at what looks quite a controlled pace, and you can tell that from the way the athletes are just bunched together there at the front, running about 6 wide. And it is pretty controlled at the moment. as they run down. They've gone past the finish already, and this is the first turn. They'll loop back on themselves and then turn back. They are running around the Arias de São João Sports Club grounds, and Albufeira is about just over 40 kilometers away from Faro Airport, which anyone who's visited this region will be very well aware of. The kind of central airport connecting hub for the Algarve. So, let's see as they get themselves sorted out. I mentioned that Fenerbahce, the winners for the last 2 years of the team competition, but of course individual honours also at stake here. And we'll be checking in on the lap scores as best as we can get them anyway as they progress here. As we see the familiar green vest there of Playa de Castellón, which is a vest that we will be seeing a lot today, I can assure you of that. They'll certainly be contending for individual and team honours, Playa de Castellón. But we're early on here through lap 1 of the under-20 women's race, and a bit of a break already in the pack there. And as we see there, there's probably about, I think it's 70 odd, under 20 women's, there was 72 athletes entered, but of course 4 can enter each competition, or 4 can total line for each club. 3 to score, of course, is the general rule these days at European cross-country level, and this is no exception. Still 4 to score, of course, at the world cross-country. At the moment, I think it is Diana Filippa who is currently out there in the lead. But it is very early days still in this under-20 women's race at the European Champion Clubs cross country. And I mentioned some of the big contenders here, the likes of Nadia Soto Perez as well of Playas Castellón. She was better known, I suppose, as a mountain runner, but the 18-year-old undoubtedly will be featuring strongly here. And the likes of Vian Aydar of Turkey as well, but Maria Rolli as well of Playas de Castellón. She was 50th recently at the World Cross Country Under-20 race over in Tallahassee. So look out for her as well in that green vest of Playas de Castellón. But we're still on lap 1 at the moment. But already a bit of a splintering in the pack. And it looks like the athlete from Playa de Castellón is just going out chasing our early leader. So often it really is not about the first lap in a cross-country race. It's all about just managing that effort very, very carefully, coming through when it matters most. But as I mentioned, there is a bit of elevation change on the lap. Nothing too extreme. I think it's about 15 meters of total elevation change across the lap. Just over 3 laps in total. As we see, it is Sandra Fernandez there who is out front at the moment. And she has certainly set her stall out eagerly here and very early. Starting to break clear there at the front, but lots of running left to go in this one. There's one of the Aldershot athletes there coming through, back in 3rd. Aldershot Farnham District, such a powerhouse club in English athletics, and indeed when they come to international competitions like this as well. So early days, but it is Sandra Fernandez who leads the way at the moment. See the full rundown there of the under-20 field here at the European Champion Clubs cross country. And Fernandez still just leading, about 7 or 8 meter lead there over the chasing pack. They just swing a left turn. They'll now be running back towards home. As Sandra Fernandez, who is of the Club Atletismo Valladolid. So not too far of a journey for her out on the Iberian Peninsula. But Fernandez doesn't have too many records to her name yet, or too many results in higher level races to her name, but she was 6th last year. She's better known as an 800 meter runner, but clearly impressive strength as well from the 17-year-old. So certainly going to be younger than a lot of the athletes in this field, but she is the one pushing the pace here early on in the under 20 women's race. But it is now bunched together at the front, 5 athletes all together as they come through with just over 1 lap completed, 2 more to go. Still very early days at the European Champion Clubs cross country, but we'll get a much better idea now as they pass through who exactly is faring well in the team event. But there they go, Elif Acicek leading at the moment, and that is the yellow and bluish strip of Fenerbahce. So Acicek just starting to press on a little bit there, but still 5 bunched together at the moment, and then a gap of maybe 15 meters back to another 5 athletes who are giving honest chase back in the 6th to 10th positions. But the field has splintered quite significantly, and Acicek has certainly been part of that, just pushing it along together alongside Sandra Fernandez there at the front. And we'll get a better idea of the team standings as they start to come in, as all the athletes go across the line. But Acicek in the Fenerbahce strip there, in the centre of the shot. She's just 17 years old, so that's another year at under 20 level. She will be underage again, as we see Fenerbahce there dominant at the moment in the team event, having, as we see, an athlete almost go down there over those little log barriers. But it is Fernandez at the front at the moment, and then Acicek staying right on her slipstream in second, just kind of running off the shoulder there a little, but very much prominent. But Fernandez, who is also just 17 years old, alongside Acicek, these two lead the way at the moment. And Acicek has plenty of experience. She's been running well indoors. She set a Turkish under 18 record, in fact, just before the end of the year, over 3,000 meters in Istanbul. So a Turkish under 18 record, so no surprise to see her up towards the front at this point. That was 9:26 she ran for 3,000 meters, but plenty steeple chasing as well in Acicek's past. She did run a Turkish under 18 steeplechase record for 2,000 meters last year, 6:35 in Izmir, and was a competitor at the European Athletics Cross Country Championships back in December. Also in Portugal, of course, in Lagoa. She was 28 there, Acicek. And she is right at the front there alongside Fernandez at the moment, pushing things along. But a group of 5 now has quite clearly split from the field, as we see some great drone shots of them there just going around the course. But we're now into the thick of this race, and it is Fernandez who is continuing to push things along at the front. And perhaps just eking out a little advantage there on the downhill section. As you see, it's still a group of 5 there.
Sandra Fernandez.
And we'll have 4 individual races and the mixed relay to come, of course. And a reminder that we'll be on here until around about 1 p.m. local time, 2 p.m. CET. mentioned there are some undulations, they're just dealing with them there.
E vai ganhando posições, atenção, está bem, Maria Justo para já vai seguir na 6ª posição, mas
So it is Elif Akcicek, Sandra Fernandez, Kitty Scott and Margaret Grau at the front at the moment. And Fernandez still just applying the pressure, the most pressure of that leading quartet at the moment. And she leads, and you can see the gaps are opening wide in behind there. That is kind of a factor at the European Champions Clubs cross country, because obviously you do have that interesting blend between the international athletes who tend to be at the head of the field and the club mates. But at the moment it is Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense who is just ahead of Kitty Scott there of Aldershot Farnham District, just back in second. And then Mara Grau running in fourth from Playas Castellón, and it is Dondu Boiras, in fact, who is now towards the four for Fenerbahce, because Elif Akcicek has just dropped off that group just a little. And it looks as if Mara Grau is also just starting to drop off, so perhaps there's going to be three here. But Grau is certainly digging in there in that slightly downhill section. And just trying to maintain contact, because even psychologically here this is big. If Grau can just hang in for the next few hundred meters as we go up over that little bump. And that gap though is threatening to grow a little bit more as Sandra Fernandez, Kitty Scott and Mara Grau from Atletica Lucense, Aldershot and Playas Castellón just press on, or sorry, Boiras of Fenerbahce press on ahead of Grau of Playas de Castellón. But these three, they've all been kind of sharing the workload really there. As you see them pass through, just a small advantage, 1 lap to go now. Sandra Fernandez, Dondu Boiras and Kitty Scott locked together at the front. But Mara Grau there from Playas Castellón, she just takes a look around, which is never too good a sign when athletes are starting to wonder about who's behind them rather than who's in front of them. But it'll turn out to be an inspired move by Mara Grau, because she is still in contact and she is still going to be very much dangerous here over the final 1800 meters that now remain. And it looks as if Dondu Boiras is now keen to get on with things, because Sandra Fernandez has been demoted to third. It is Kitty Scott there in second, and look at that there, Mara Grau sensibly there, just even for psychological reasons, just pressing along that home straight to just close up that gap. And Grau now will be able to sort of just sit in the slipstream for a while. It's still going to be hard work. She's still working very, very hard, I assure you that. But Mara Grau will be getting a lot of benefit from just having closed that gap and being fully in contention and fully in contact as they head out on this last lap. There's a full rundown on the top 25 or so. You can see the time gaps coming in. But now, once again, it is Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense who is pressing on here, just ahead of Kitty Scott of Aldershot. And then it is Fenerbahce's Dondu Boiras back in third at the moment, and the gaps are once again beginning to open here. And this is where things get decisive. We're well inside the last mile or so now, the last 1500 meters. As we look back through the field there, I'm assuming Fenerbahce were going well. We'll look at the Aldershot Farnham District there. Kitty Scott is up into second, and then that is Katie Pye there back in about, I think that's 7th or 8th place she's currently in. So packing very well, but look at the Fenerbahce vest there as well. They're very much packing well inside that top 10, top 12. So it looks like Fenerbahce might be headed for their third straight under-20 women's title at the European Champions Clubs cross country. At the moment, it is Fernandez who is pressing ahead here. The Spaniard, just 17 years old. And of course, Kitty Scott, who is giving chase at the moment from Aldershot Farnham District, is even younger. She's only, well, she's listed here as 15 years old, 279 days, but I do believe there is a lower age limit of 16, but perhaps that's just for the senior races. Or perhaps that date of birth that I'm looking at isn't quite accurate, but either way, Kitty Scott is running an absolute blinder at the moment. She's back in third. She's a 16:38 5,000 meter runner on the track last summer, which is some running, having just turned 15, but she's been slightly demoted there back to third, but is very much in the scrap for silver at the moment alongside Mara Grau of Playas Castellon, who has come through strongly here into second. And while the gap has grown and while Sandra Fernandez has got away by about 20 meters or so, there's still very much hope alive back in second for Mara Grau, who of course will not just be thinking of her individual honours, she will be very keen to pack well for Playas de Castellon. As we see some of the coaches there just urging the athletes along as they go through the forested part of this course. And it is very good running ground, good running conditions too as well for a race like this. It's in terms of the climate, the weather, it's about 12-13 degrees. It'll be getting up to about 15 in the coming hours, but it will be staying dry, it will be overcast, as we see Sandra Fernandez there still just ahead, but it's not a decisive lead, is it, at the moment? It's just about 2 seconds, I'd say it's at there, going off the visuals on screen, as we see Kitty Scott there back in third, and then the two Fenerbahce athletes, Yobas and Boiras, back in fourth, well, joint fourth really at the moment, and then Katie Pye of Aldershot Farnham District just back in sixth. But there is the crucial one going through the screen there, Elif Akcicek in 9th place for Fenerbahce. That's the one that could secure them the team title, because look there, Sabrina Johansson of Aldershot is just 1 place behind. So Aldershot versus Fenerbahce here. It is England against Turkey in the battle for team honours. But who's it going to be? Because a lot could change over this last 600 metres or so, as they're very much en route back towards the finish now. And let's see if Sandra Fernandez can hang on for Atletica Lucense. Up front, the Spaniard, it is 2 Spaniards. And it looks like Fernandez, I think, is going to be strong enough, because if anything, that gap is growing back to Grau. And that is a brilliant shot there from behind, utilising the drones as she starts running downhill to emerge from that kind of tree wooded area. Sandra Fernandez is looking good, is looking strong. She was the most aggressive athlete in this race in terms of her tactics, and she's certainly making the best of her way home here. And that gap is just growing and growing and growing, if anything. So back in second, Mara Grau is giving very honest chase there and doing her best, but as she rounds the final turn, just that 90-degree turn that takes them into the straight, that means there's just about 130 meters left once they do straighten up, and a smile breaks out. So they pass that start line, and Sandra Fernandez will know that it's only 130 meters from there to the finish. She takes a look around, but that is a look that will give her great delight and euphoria amidst the agony of a cross-country race, a little over 5 kilometers. Sandra Fernandez, one last look to make sure of it, and it is now sure. She is going to be the under-20 individual champion at the European Champion Clubs cross-country. Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense comes home just ahead of her fellow Spaniard Mara Grau of Playas de Castellon, and then it is Ayan Yobas of Fenerbahce who came through very strongly back in third, and it was Katie Pye came through to be actually the leading athlete from Aldershot Farnham District back in fourth. Morabit Lamia is back in fifth, the French athlete. Kitty Scott then, She was fading on the last lap, but what a run that was from the youngster from Aldershot Farnham District. 6th place for her. And now let's watch these team scores, because there is Elif Akcicek and Donabu Boyras coming through for Fenerbahce. And I think that might ensure the team scoring for Fenerbahce. Just counting up here as they come in a very unofficial manner, but no doubt about the 3 medalists. Gold goes to Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense, Mara Grau of Playas de Castellón back in 2nd, and Aytan Yobas of Fenerbahce in Turkey back in 3rd. They're the individual medalists. But let's tot up some team scores here before they do it officially for us. So, Fenerbahce, 3 points, 8 points, and 9 points. That's a total of 20 for Fenerbahce. Aldershot Farnham District, 4 points, 6 points, and 10 points. So that means Fenerbahce and Aldershot, in my unofficial reading of the results, if my mathematics have held up, have both finished with 20 points. Now, this is important. So, 20 points apiece it looks like for Fenerbahce, and in that event, the tie-break is decided by which 3rd placed athlete, which final scorer finished highest up. And it's good news for Turkey and for Fenerbahce, because their 3rd scorer, Dondu Boyras, came through in 9th, Sabrina Johansson in 10th for Aldershot, and they were credited, just to tell you how close this was, with the exact same time, 20:35. So mere inches separating that battle for 9th, which it looks like has turned out to be the battle for overall team victory at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country under 20. Again, that is a bit unofficial. That's just me doing the sums in my head, looking at the results. We'll await official confirmation as it comes through. But to me, it does look like Fenerbahce have finished on 20 points. And if those results are confirmed, they will edge it on countback via their 3rd place scorer by a matter of inches over Aldershot Farnham District. What in a way that will be to kick things off at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country alongside the Algarve coast. It is really a beautiful setting to run cross country. Albufeira, of course, has hosted the World Cross Country in the past. And it is, the Portuguese did such an amazing job on the European Cross Country before Christmas, on that tight technical course in Lagoa. As we see, confirmation, it is a Spanish 1-2 individually. Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense takes gold, 20:05, ahead of Mara Grau and Aytan Yobas, the leading Fenerbahce athlete, back in 3rd. Katie Pye, the leading Aldershot Farnham District athlete, back in 4th, just off the podium. And it looks like it's going to be a silver medal for her in the team event, because it looks like for the 3rd year running that Fenerbahce have taken victory. But we'll await official confirmation from that as we go down through the results here. And you see those gaps growing quite considerably as you go down through the field. As I mentioned, that sort of interesting blend you always get at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country between the athletes who have competed on the international stage and those who are more used to doing so at national level. But of course now, via their club, they've got the call up to run internationally. And it is a brilliant set up, the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. Clubs obviously qualifying through their own national champion. And next up, it's going to be the under 20. There it is, there's confirmation. So the suspicion was confirmed. 20 points apiece for Fenerbahce and Aldershot. And of course, you can see there the 3rd of those scorers. That's what determines it in the event of a tiebreak at cross country. There was a time it was your highest scorer, but Fenerbahce would have edged it on that front as well with that 3rd place finish for Aytan Yobas. But on countback, they shade it. They take gold just ahead of Fenerbahce. So, brilliant contest there to open things up in the under 20 women's race at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. Next up, In about 5 minutes time, it's going to be the under 20 men's race over the same distance. They'll be getting round it a little bit quicker, the 5,620 metres, just over 3 laps ahead in the under 20 men's race. And again, it will be no surprise to see a Turkish club coming home in front there, because Turkish clubs have won 12 of the 18 team titles in the under 20 race, and they've won 9 out of 18 individual titles over the years at the European Champions Clubs cross country. So 2/3 of the team titles and half of the individual titles have gone to Turkish clubs, which repeatedly show up so well at the European Champion Clubs cross country. But there's the full lineup. A few of the athletes to keep an eye on. Hugo Ukine of Belgium from Hervé AC. He was 13th in this race last year, and of course an extra year development. I'm sure we'll be eyeing finishing position inside the top 10, perhaps top 5, or maybe even a medal. Sam Matamoros of Spain from Playas Castellón. He was 5th in this race last year, so no doubt he'll have his eyes on a medal. There's the likes of Martí Torregrossa, who is Playas de Castellón as well. He is an 8:45 steeplechaser and a European under 20 silver medalist in the steeplechase last year, so look out for him, the Playas de Castellón athlete. And his clubmate Alejandro de la Viuda, the 18-year-old, was 33rd at the World Cross Country just last month in Tallahassee in the under 20 race. So anyone who can finish 33rd in a World under 20 cross country race is certainly going to feature quite prominently at the European Champion Clubs cross country. We're now just a bit over 2 minutes away from the start. And a great overhead shot there to get a look at the course, and you can see that finishing straight. As we see there is Fenerbahce. They may well be favourites again. They did win last year. Ali Tunk helped them to gold last year, but he's not lined up this year. But Fenerbahce have won this title 2 of the last 3 years. They won in 2023. It was Playas de Castellón in 2024. There is a bit of an overview of the start line. Do some introductions for so Fenerbahce had just entered 4 here. It looks like they will run 4. They are Umra Azat Zayetoglu, Abdul Samet Duman, Baran Khan Demez, and Mustafa Kaya are the 4 Fenerbahce athletes that they will be putting out to try to defend their title successfully. But I'm sure they'll have plenty of competition, at least from Playas de Castellón, who on paper really do look to have a very, very strong hand here. Playas de Castellón, they did have entered 6, so we'll see which 4 they run. And some teams, of course, varying in terms of their approach. Some have entered just 3, most have entered 4. Many have put down 6 in the preliminary entries, and then of course 4 allowed to toe the line for each club, with 3 to score. I know there is quite a bit of debate in the cross-country world between whether it should be 3 to score or 4 to score, but did change at global level, or did change at European level in recent years, and perhaps the 3 to score, I think, perhaps makes the most sense overall at most competitions, because it does sort of encourage those smaller clubs or smaller countries, when they do have a standout athlete or 2, to get in there and compete, and at least better compete with the nations that do have superior depth, and just perhaps levels the playing field just a little. But this looks like a very swift start for the under 20 men's race. There were a total of 85 athletes on the entry sheet, but expect about something in around the 70 mark, 75, to actually have toed the line. As they pass through the finish line for the first time, we'll get a better idea who's to the fore here. And it is a pretty swift start at the moment, and you can see they're going quick, but not crazy quick. It is actually Callum Toomey of Denor Harriers who went through the finish line there at the front. He's in the white and black vest there, alongside Guillaume Sons of Playas de Castellón, and Alejandro Mateo of SC Braga is also up towards the front. There's Callum Toomey on the left with the white vest and the black stripe across it. And then look out for Guillaume Sanz there is on the far left, the tall Spaniard in the familiar forest green strip of Playas Castellón. But so they're heading out on lap 1, very early days here at the European Champion Clubs cross country. You can see some of the athletes up towards the front. We won't worry too much about team standings at this early point as they go over those small logs that are now a pretty much essential feature of so many cross-country races. I think they're always no harm. They make things a bit more interesting for athletes, spectators, and especially photographers. They love a few barriers and challenges around the course. Some of the athletes here who are towards the front. Alejandro Mateo of SC Braga is featuring strongly. Alex Pereira of Vicky Foods. And then Gabriela Licini of Valle Bramblana is also in there. Mustafa Kaya as well of Fenerbahce. Look at him back towards 6th or 7th or so he is now in that yellow and black strip of Fenerbahce, of course. Fenerbahce, a powerhouse sporting institution over in Istanbul. From basketball to football and of course to athletics. But they're quite bunched here towards the front, which certainly tells you the pace isn't overly hot at the moment. Lots of the big contenders perhaps just doing a bit of shadow boxing. You can see there are probably 30 athletes there in the space of 10 meters at the front of the field, running about 4 or 5 wide at the moment. It is quite congested out there in the under 20 men's race, but I would imagine after they get this first lap completed, things will really start to open out for these athletes. And in the under 20 men's race, mentioned some of the talent that's in there. The likes of Alejandro de la Vuda of Playas de Castellón, 33rd at the World Cross Country. So when you've gone up against the world's best in the World Under 20 race, you can imagine the first lap here will feel a little more sedentary, I'm sure, for the likes of de la Vuda. It is quite bunched together there as we pass that lovely building. Portugal, of course, and this region has so much history, and it really is a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. It's kind of out of season at the moment, so a lot of the apartments and hotels you probably see in the backdrop of the course there are sitting empty at the moment in early February, but it really is a fantastic part of the world with just golden beaches, beautifully kept. As we see, it is Kuma Fraile out front there. Callum Toomey back in second as they pass through 1,250 meters. And Kuma Fraile runs for Vicky Foods. But again, it's not a decisive lead at the moment. He's just kind of announcing himself towards the front. The Spaniard. And there's the Irishman Callum Toomey there, who has really thrown himself into contention as well back in second. And he is very much setting out with intent. Is Toomey running for that Dublin club, which has had so many great athletes over the years. Denor Harriers have their own track as well, which is a lovely 300-meter track, I believe. Beautifully nestled and a beautiful location it is that Denor Harriers as well enjoy in terms of their proximity to the Phoenix Park in Dublin. And Callum Toomey is certainly setting his stall out here early here, and he is running hard behind Kuma Fraile, the Spaniard, running for Vicky Foods Athletics. the moment it is still Kuma Fraile out front, or Kuma Samuel Barrios Fraile. But it is still bunched together, and as you can see, that leading pack probably about 20 strong now at the moment. But Kula Samuel Barrios Fraile, 18-year-old Spaniard, he was 50th at the World Cross Country. As we see there, Kuma Fraile just ahead of Callum Toomey, and Denis Ferreira, it is back in third there, the Portuguese athlete. But now that they have gone through just over a lap, we'll get a much better idea of how the team standings are shaking out, because as you can see, it is starting to splinter up front. And it is splintering in a big way, and it is that man, Kuma Samuel Barrios Fraile. And it is Franklin Cabet of Sporting Club de Portugal who is pressing on at the front. So he sat back through the opening lap there, did Franklin Cabet. And he's very much announced himself to the fore at the moment. And he has injected a vicious surge here on lap 2. There's a rundown on the team standings. So Vicky Foods out front, and it is a Spanish 1-2 at the moment. And this is quite a decisive surge by Franklin Cabet, and no surprise to see him very much to the fore here. The World Under-20 cross-country champion. He was raced quite lightly. The Kenyan running for Sporting Club de Portugal injects the big surge. It's no surprise to see that it has had a devastating effect on this field, because he has pulled right clear Franklin Cabet. And he has pulled a long way clear. He did run last year 13:45 for 5 kilometers on the road, but really that is not a good indication of his true ability. So, midway through lap 2 here. And it looks like this race as a contest individually has very much been put to bed by Franklin Cabet, the World Under-20 cross-country champion. He finished second in the Kenyan cross-country championships last year in 2025, and was the runner-up in Kenya's trials for the African Under-20 championships, and was second in the trial race as well for the World Cross Country earlier this year. And it was Emmanuel Kiprono, the winner of the Kenyan trials, many people thought would be to the fore at the World Cross Country, but it was that man there, Franklin Cabet, who fared best in the end. And after it was a title that went to Turkey last year, it looks very much like Sporting Club de Portugal are going to feature very strongly here in that team event, because they are packing very well at the moment, and Franklin Cabet has fairly thrown the cat amongst the pigeons with that surge after one lap. And with about 9 minutes on the clock, he has pulled well clear of this field. He's built a substantial lead, as you would expect him to. We haven't yet seen him produce wild times, but he's built up a 15-second advantage there over his closest pursuer, the likes of Callum Toomey of the Nor Harriers, Alex Pereira of Vicky Foods, Guillaume Sanz of Playas de Castellón, Denis Ferreira of Sporting Club de Portugal and Alejandro Mateo of Sporting Club Braga. They're in the pack that is chasing. They're 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. They're all pretty much bunched together at the moment, but they're all giving chase, and it looks like a vain chase at the moment to Franklin Cabet, who is just turned on the style here. And I mentioned times, as we see there, Toomey, it is Pereira, and then it is Guillaume Sanz there back in 2nd, 3rd and 4th, not necessarily in that order, but as we see, Franklin Cabet of Sporting Club de Portugal has just put on a clinic here in the 2nd lap, and he is now coming through past the finish line with 1 lap to run. Franklin Cabet really does look a class apart here in this field, but of course, as we mentioned, that would be no surprise given his recent accomplishments. That World Under-20 cross-country title. It is such a tough title to win, but he did it in the colours of Kenya, of course, and a reminder that when it comes to the clubs, athletes can represent a club that is different from the nation that they represent internationally. There are rules governing eligibility and the length of time that they have been a club member before competing in an event like this, the European Champion Clubs cross country. So very much not unusual to see athletes from outside of Europe who are still competing for other nations be a member of a European club and indeed based in Europe. And Franklin Cabet is turning on the style here with a lap to run. He has a 21-second advantage at the moment over Guillaume Sanz of Playas Castellón, who alongside Alex Pereira pretty much came through together in the battle for silver there. And Callum Toomey and Denis Ferreira are still very much packed there in 4th and 5th in the hunt still for an individual medal. There it is with a lap to run. Franklin Cabet is clear. And Cabet, as I mentioned, just 18 years old. He did finish 2nd at the Kenyan Cross Country Championships. There's the team standings. We have them at last with a lap to run. It is Playas Castellón just ahead, 4 points ahead of Denor Harriers. So that's going to be really interesting to watch in terms of that battle up front. As you can see there, the battle for 2nd at the moment between Callum Toomey of Denor Harriers and Guillaume Sanz of Playas Castellón. But obviously Denis Ferreira up front, it's all about Franklin Cabet, who has turned on the style. He's aware of his surroundings there. You can just see him looking to his left, and he's hearing those shouts, no doubt, from some of the club coaches. Franklin Cabet, running for Sporting Club de Portugal, is putting on a clinic here with that surge in the 2nd lap. The athletes will have known all about his ability. He bided his time. He kept things very much under control on the opening lap, but he has injected a big one in the lap 2, and he's on his way to victory, and looks like on their way to silver and bronze medals are Guillaume Sanz of Playas de Castellón and Callum Toomey of Denor Harriers. But no doubt about who's going to come home in front. It is going to be Franklin Cabet, barring disaster. He is comfortably clear. Cabet has really turned on the style here. He is just, as you can see, the Sanz and Toomey not yet in the shot. That's a measure of just how far he has pulled clear. Franklin Cabet. And as we see, it is Sanz there in 2nd. Toomey is hanging on back in 3rd, but Denis Ferreira of Sporting Club de Portugal back in 4th, and it is Alex Pereira and Afonso Gomez back in 5th and 6th, and we see there Rhys Johnson of Dunor Harriers back in 9th, Charlie Neal back in 11th, so they're packing very well in that team event. But Playas de Castellón are also packing very well. You see there down in 16th, Alejandro Juan. I think he is their 3rd man. I think their 4th man, I'm not sure, but they were just in front, 4 points clear with a lap to run, Playas de Castellón. But the Dunor Harriers are close enough, and Callum Toomey has had a big final lap by the looks of things, but he's hanging on at the moment for an individual bronze as Franklin Cabet goes up and over that little bump there. And here we are around the final turns here into the home straight. There it is, there's the start line. That means 130 meters to go for Franklin Cabet, the World Under-20 cross-country champion, who has just put on a clinic here for Sporting Club de Portugal. He looks well under control, and look at the speed he is moving at towards the finish. So welcome him back as the individual champion. He is turning on the jets as he goes to the finish. Franklin Cabet, your Under-20 men's champion at the European Champion Clubs cross-country in the green and white stripes of Sporting Club de Portugal. And it looks like it's going to be Guillaume Sanz of Playas de Castellón who's going to lead them home. And it is Alex Pereira, and Callum Toomey looks to have dropped right out of that there all of a sudden. And it is Alex Pereira of Vicky Foods and Diniz Ferreira of Sporting Club de Portugal chasing the bronze medal, but the silver medalist is all alone in splendid isolation. Guillaume Sanz of Playas de Castellón takes a look around. He is safe, he has a silver, and it's one he is certainly going to celebrate. He might have a team goal to come. Guillaume Sanz across the line, arms aloft, and then it is Diniz Ferreira of Sporting Club de Portugal. It was Diniz Ferreira indeed who came through there for 3rd of Sporting Club de Portugal. 44 seconds behind, 41 seconds behind Sanz. That really is a demolition job he did. And we'll await the team scorings in full, because it was Afonso Gomez back in 4th from SC Braga. Alex Pereira of Vicky Foods came 5th. And it was a very tough last lap, it looks like, for Toomey of the Dunor Harriers, because he's yet to reach the finish, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. But it looks then like Playas de Castellón are going to be the team champions, because they have had Guillaume Sanz in 2nd, Samuel Alonso in 6th, and then Alejandro Juan back in 13th position. And I don't think anyone has beaten that, or have they? Because where's the 3rd man from Sporting Club de Portugal? Because they had Franklin Cabet in 1st and Diniz Ferreira in 3rd. And where exactly was their 3rd guy? Let's have a look down the results. And again, this is all a little bit unofficial right now, but I think Playas de Castellón, I've gone through the top 25 and I haven't seen the 3rd man yet from Sporting. And it looks like Afonso Oliveira back in 29th, I think, is the 3rd man for Sporting Club de Portugal, which would mean that they finish on 33 points, if my sums are correct. And then Playas de Castellón, which was leading with 1 lap to run on 23 points. They've got 2 points in 2nd, 6 points for Samuel Alonso, and then Alejandro Juan back in 13th. So 21 points it looks like Playas de Castellón have come in with, which I think is going to be good enough to take gold in the team event. They were the champions back in 2024, and it looks like Playas de Castellón have done it again. We know for certain where the individual goal is going, and it is of course to Franklin Cabet, who really did a demolition job on that field over the latter half. 41 seconds was his winning margin, just over 5 kilometers, but a brilliant run there for silver medal by Guillaume Sanz. And now we'll get an official look at the results and hopefully confirmation of our 3 team medalists. There it is, Franklin Cabet running for Sporting Club de Portugal. 16:53. What an exhibition that was. Guillaume Sanz takes the silver medal, Playas de Castellón. 17:34. And then Diniz Ferreira, brilliant run from him, Sporting Club de Portugal. 2 spots on the podium individually. 17:37 for third. And then going back down through the field, as you can see, we're still waiting for that third scorer. There he is, Afonso Oliveira was the third scorer in 29th for Sporting Club de Portugal. And Philip Toomey there, you see there in 36th position for the Noah Harriers, so he had a very grim last kilometre or so there, where he would have been fighting through the pain barrier, but hopefully there was no injury involved and it was just a fatigue of going out a bit too fast. But his individual shot at the medal unfortunately came apart in the closing 800 meters or so. But you can certainly say that he went for it and he was pretty close to getting it as we round out the full field here. And as I mentioned, Fenerbahce winning the team title for 2 of the last 3 years, but it looks like that's something that Playa de Castellón will now be able to say, because they were the champions in 2024. And if my sums are correct, I think they've done it again in 2026. See then Bruno Mars there and the South Korean band, whose name I forget, blasting out around the arena. And there it is, confirmation that Playas de Castellón for the 2nd time in 3 years have taken victory in the under 20 men's race. They come home well clear of Sporting Club de Portugal, and they say, you know, it was its weakest link. A difference in depth there, because Playas de Castellón, their 3rd man in 13th place, that ultimately was the difference. Sporting Club de Portugal had their 3rd man in 29th. So it is all about the depth when it comes to that cross-country team competition. Gold once again going to Playas de Castellón as we look down the Algarve coast on a quite overcast Sunday morning. It's just before 11 a.m. now, and we see 13 degrees. Beautiful day it is. In the Algarve, a very distinctive coastline there, that kind of reddened orangey browny cliff face. A very familiar sight, and indeed those flat-topped trees you see in the background. But the next race to be getting underway will be the senior women's race, which is coming up in about 10 minutes time. And we had a late withdrawal there, unfortunately. One of the stars who probably would have put on an individual exhibition quite similar to what we witnessed in that under-20 men's race. Lekina Amaba of Ethiopia, running for Playas de Castellón. She unfortunately had to withdraw with a late injury, I think it was. So with her absence though, the senior women's individual title race has really been thrown wide open. So good to see plenty of fans there. Some of the Irish contingent turning up. A few of the Dublin Athletics clubs. I'm sure the local sometime resident, Enda Fitzpatrick, will be in the region. Irishman who often heavily involved with some of the good pals with some of the local organising committee based in Portugal for part of the year. And it is a part of the world that really does love its athletics. And they always are such good hosts. Whether it's a European cross-country or a world cross-country, the Portuguese do it very well, indeed many other events as well. As we look back to the under-20 women's race, you see the presentation. Team gold here went to Fenerbahce, of course, ahead of Aldershot Farnham District on countback, with Grand Toulouse taking third. Grau taking the silver medal. And it was Ayten Yobas of Fenerbahce with the bronze. But there is the winner, the individual gold medalist at the European Champion Clubs cross country in the under 20 women's race from Atletica Lucense. It is Sandra Fernandez. It was an aggressive run from Fernandez, the young Spaniard. She set her stall out early. She pushed the pace on lap 3. She had plenty of company right until the midway through that final lap, but in the end, Sandra Fernandez prevailed over her compatriot, her fellow Spaniard from a rival club in Playas Castellón. Mara Grau takes the silver, and Ayten Yobas keeping up the proud tradition for Fenerbahce, and that was such a pivotal run for her to get that individual bronze. And having lost out in the battle for silver with her rival from Playas de Castellón, Mara Grau, up steps her teammate Dondu Boiras back in 9th place, just edging Aldershot's Sabrina Johansson back in 10th by less than a second. Mere fractions in it at the finish between Boiras and Johansson, but of course, given they both finished on 20 points, that was what decided it in the end. Boiras edging victory for Fenerbahce in that team event, and they will now be rewarded with their team gold medals. So next race, as I mentioned, about 7 or 8 minutes away now. Time for a team presentation. Bit of Bad Bunny there blasting out in the background. Maybe if you're awake at about 2 or 3 a.m. European time tonight, as I certainly will be, you can catch Bad Bunny on the halftime show at the Super Bowl. No halftime show though at the European Champion Clubs cross country. It's just little timeouts for the medal presentations. And the next presentation, of course, will be the team event for the under 20 women's race. So Bad Bunny falls silent. And it's presentation time for the under 20 women's race. And first up, it's going to be the bronze medalist, Playas Castellón, by the way, just edged off the podium into 4th. So the Spanish powerhouse club that will be expecting to take a number of medals. They got one individually but didn't quite get one in the team event in the under 20 women's race, but they continue to produce national and international class athletes, Playas Castellón. But it was this team from Grand Toulouse that managed to do the business with a 5th place, a 12th place and a 14th place finish. 31 points in total, and Grand Toulouse manages to take it. Murabet Lamia led them home in 5th. It was Sdur Norin back in 12th, and their scorers were rounded out by Drapeau Clara back in 14th position, and then it was Tronel Anna back in 21st as well, rounded out their team. So 4 to run, 3 to score, and bronze medals for all. And that is a proud day for Grand Toulouse. I wonder who gets to keep the trophy. There's only one trophy, but 4 medals. Perhaps that will go in the clubhouse, wherever it is, in Toulouse. But a very proud achievement for them. And then it is Aldershot Farnham District. They were always going to be formidable contenders, led by Katie Pye in 4th place. And it was Kitty Scott who ran such a brave race, the youngster there on the left. She was really in contention for the individual gold for much of the race. She just faded out of the medals individually on the final lap, but what a courageous run it was by Kitty Scott. to come through. Just a few seconds behind her teammate Katie Pye. Katie Scott was 6th. And then their third scorer, Sabrina Johansson, was back in 10th.
And in the first place, gold medalist with 20 points from Turkey.
Well done to Aldershot, and it was Matilda Robertson there. I was just looking up who their fourth scorer was. But in the end, they had to concede victory to this team from Fenerbahce. Because once again, the team that won in 2024 and 2025, it was a different iteration of their team this year, but it was just as effective. It was Ayten Yobas winning that individual bronze and just beating Katie Pye to third place by a few seconds, which was pivotal, of course, to give them a tie in the overall team standings. Then it was Elif Akcicek back in 8th place, followed swiftly by Dondu Boyras back in 9th. And of course, Boyras getting the better of Sabrina Johansson in that battle for 9th place is what decided team victory. So there they are, the medalists in the under-20 women's race. Well done to all the athletes from Fenerbahce, from Aldershot Farnham District, and from Grand Toulouse. There is the flag of Fenerbahce being flown proudly. And well done to their quartet, Vian Adar, who was back in 13th. So if it had come down to a fourth score, rest assured it would still have been the same result overall. Fenerbahce, 3 times champions in a row now. The Turkish club continuing to produce the goods at the European Champion Clubs cross country. Of course, I mentioned their dominance really in the under 20 men's ranks as well. It's very clear. Winning not Fenerbahce themselves, but Turkish clubs winning half of the individual titles in the under 20 men's race and 2/3 of the team titles across the 18 years. But now things get even more serious because we're moving on up to the senior category, and we're going to have 5 long laps here plus the little bit that takes them towards the finish to start off with. And I mentioned just a while ago, but for those tuning in, we do a rapid rundown on the full lineups there. But a big absence from this race, a big late withdrawal, Lekina Amaba of Ethiopia, who really would have been the outstanding pick on this, the overall favourite, a 64-minute half marathoner, a 29:29 10k runner on the roads just a few weeks ago. But Amaba, the Ethiopian, who was due to run for Playas de Castellón, injured, had to withdraw. That was just announced yesterday, and as a result of that, because Playas de Castellón, which have been such a strong force at this level, Playas de Castellón forced to concede the team event because they had only entered 3 athletes, and I'm sure if they could go back a few weeks, they would have had the ability to enter 4. Perhaps they would have put 4 in if they had numbers available, but because of that, they won't be in contention for the team category because they had only entered 3 athletes. So the late withdrawal of Amaba costing them dearly. But you would suspect, given her accomplishments, that the way Amaba was running with that 29:29 10k, it would have turned this race into a bit of an individual procession, similar to what we saw in that under 20 men's race. But now it is very much a wide open race, and there are plenty of athletes, as we see an absolute dash for the first turn there by one of the athletes, who is quite keen to get away, I would imagine, from this field. But Certainly no need really at this level over a distance like this, which is 9,280 meters, to perhaps go out that hard, because it is a nice wide course. Good run to the first turn, but nonetheless she's in position at the head of the field for the senior women's race. And just to take you through some of the names that we'd expect to feature well here, that is Barbara Lampova, by the way, who ripped through the first 200 meters or so. So she's certainly mission accomplished in terms of getting to the front, but not about being in front after 100 meters as much as it is after 9,100 meters here. But 9,280 is the entire race distance. 5 laps to complete, having passed through the finish. And this is the first of them. And as I mentioned, Barbara Lampova of Sokol Opava went out very hard, but Jacqueline Rotich there of SC Braga and Miriam Cherop, the 2 Kenyan natives, running for European clubs, very much to the fore now that we're about 600, 800 meters into this race or so. Nicole Reina also up there as well from ASD Caivano, Eloise Laigle of DMA, and Carolina Campos also in there as well from Bilbao. And looking back through the field, just seeing the vest of Livelle AC there. There's a couple of Livelle vests running together. The leader among them there is Michelle Finn. She's back in about 15th at the moment. Of course, who's a 2-time Olympian in 2016 and in 2021. Teacher as well alongside it, and had a brilliant run at the Raheny 5 mile recently, 26:35. Michelle Finn ran for 5 miles, or just over 8 kilometers, so that is very, very good running. And great to see after a couple of years of injury struggles, Michelle Finn really working her way back. She's in the golden vest of Livelle there, back in about 15th place on the far left ear shot. But up front, still quite early days here, and the lead is shifting and changing. In there as well for Sporting Club de Portugal, the 19-year-old. She's a sub-15 minute 5,000 meter runner. We expect to see her towards the fore, and the under-20 champion at the European Champion Clubs cross country last year. She won by 74 seconds at under-20 level, so she could feature very strongly here. But now that I'm looking down through the live results, I don't actually see her popping up, so perhaps another late withdrawal there as well. But it's quite bunched together at the front, and Mariana Machado, who you can see there back in, she's in 3rd or 4th there at the moment in that red strip. She runs for Sporting Club de Braga, same club as Jacqueline Rotich, so we'd expect them to be very strong here in the team race. But Machado is a name very well known to all in European athletics who've been following the underage competitions, especially in recent years. But Machado, who recently ran a national record on the roads for 10 kilometers for Portugal over in Valencia, was just about 4 weeks ago. 30:58 Machado ran there, and also 14:53 on the track last year in Xiamen in China at the Diamond League over there. So 14:53, that sets a very strong standard, and 30:58 for 10k as well for Machado, who has had her injury problems. She's won a lot of age group titles and medals over the years, as we see Nicole Reina there coming through up the front in that yellow vest with the Italian flag running down it. ASD Caivano, she leads at the moment, just ahead of Jacqueline Rotich of SC Braga. Miriam Cherop is back in 3rd. Lucy Jones there as well of her. So running brilliantly there from Herne Hill. And Mariana Machado on that far side in the red strip. She is very much in medal contention as well at the moment. Some of the other names who are making their presence felt towards the front: Elvani Nimbona of ASD Caivano, who are packing very well in the team event. Carolina Campos as well of Bilbao. And the first of a few Fenerbahce athletes who are threatening the top 10, Sumaya Erol and Idibe Yajiz. And meanwhile, Idiara Suarez of Bilbao is also in there. So 3 Fenerbahce athletes in the top 11 at the moment. They are packing very well, and you can see there they've run together through this opening lap. Looks to be a bit of a tactic. Those three vests there in the yellow and navy stripes, they're just at the back of that leading pack, but they are running together, packing well. There's actually 4 of them now. So, and is Derya Kunur as well has joined them. So Fenerbahce with, well, I suppose it's quite aggressive tactics, putting 4 in the top 11, 12 through the opening kilometre or so, opening mile. But they are now steadily marching towards the front. And it is very early days, of course. 5 laps, as I mentioned, to run here. This is the first of them, just over 9,000 metres. And Elveni Nimbona as well, of ASD Caivano, making her presence felt towards the front. She's just drifting up there on the left. But it is Jacqueline Rotic of Sporting Club Braga and Miriam Cherop as well, the Kenyan back in second. But it is quite tightly packed together here at the moment, so that tells us that some of the big contenders haven't really hit the gas just yet. And why would they? With 1 lap down, 4 more to run, and a leading pack goes through. That's about 10 strong. And the big guns we expected to see challenge and indeed are making their presence felt towards the front. Jacqueline Rotic, Miriam Cherop and Elveni Nimboma, the 3 at the front. But it is still very early days. I mentioned in terms of some of the results we've had in recent years. Last year, victory individually went to Francine Niomakunzi, the Burundian. She was running for Sporting Club Braga, which is featuring very strongly here indeed, with Jacqueline Rotic now starting to turn the screw out front. Miriam Cherop, though, looks like she's ready to go with her, as indeed does Elveni Nimbona of ASD Caivano. Mariana Machado there keeping very close order on the far side. And I mentioned some of Machado's achievements, but she was World University Games champion Machado back in 2023, over 5,000 metres. And 4th at the World Under-20 Championships all the way back in 2018. European Under-20 silver medalist as well, but an Olympian in 2020... it was Tokyo World Championships last year. She went out in qualification in the 5,000 metres, but had a bit of a tricky summer, did Machado. She mentioned that she had appendicitis and just interrupted her training, so she wasn't at her best in Tokyo last year, but she was 3rd in this competition last year as an individual and leading, of course, Sporting Club de Braga to gold in the team event. And Machado has good experience of this. She was an Olympian as well in Paris. But in that transition from junior to senior level, Machado did have plenty of injury issues. She has still kept racking up the titles though, and racking up the medals internationally. Machado, 16 national titles in total she's won between indoors, outdoors and cross country. Perhaps 1 or 2 on the road there as well, but Machado really is a bit of a star of Portuguese distance running, and at the age of just 25 should be on the scene for many, many years to come, and very much making good on all that potential she showed as a teenager, and indeed in her early 20s, and hopefully all the injury problems she faced are fully behind her now. But Machado is just sitting there in joint third, 4th place at the moment in that red strip of Sporting Club Braga, and the drone shot very much shows how strong Fenerbahce are here, because as we see, 4 athletes from Fenerbahce just clustered together there, running almost as one within a few meters of each other, but they're just at the back of this pack at the moment. They're sitting in or hanging on, you can decide, but either way, 4 in the top 10 I think at the moment, and those 4 are Sumaya Erol, Bahar Yildirim, Adibe Yagiz and Derya Kunur. Fenerbahce making a bit of a statement, but so too are Sporting Club Braga, because at the very head of the standings it is Jacqueline Rotic towing the field along, and then her clubmate Mariana Machado back now in about 5th position. And then it is Laura Taborda back in 16th. So it's a very interesting team race developing here, because if you add 16 and about 4 for our leading duo, Sporting Club Braga with about 20 points, but Fenerbahce are going to be in the low 20s at the moment. There are 3 athletes in about 7th and then 9th and 10th or so, 6th or so at the moment, but it is a very tight team event, it will be. But it could all come down to that third athlete, because it very much looks like for Sporting Club de Braga, that Mariana Machado and indeed Jacqueline Rotich are going to feature very strongly here. But it is early days, an awful lot can change, but as we so often see in cross country, it comes down to the third scorer, the final scorer. How high can they get up through the field? And those who pace it very well or sensibly distribute their energy evenly over the course, from the ones who are laughing last and laughing best on that final lap. As we go out here on the second lap, and I think the pace isn't too hot up the front here at the moment, because they are bunching here these, 8 athletes or so in that leading pack now. And the ones perhaps we haven't mentioned as much, the likes of Aidara Suarez there of Bilbao. She's back in 7th place or so. Lucy Jones is also in there from Herne Hill. Look out for her as we get a rundown there on the full field as they pass through, and we'll get a much better idea soon, I'm sure, of the team standings also, and just see who's leading the race at this relatively early stage to become Europe's champion club. Almost completed lap 2, and they're going to just swing a quick left turn here. This will take them back towards the finish, and then they'll just swing another left turn. As they pass that tent is the call room there on the right. That's where athletes go to just get their numbers checks. They all carry, of course, transponders, usually in the bib. Sometimes it's tied to the laces of the spikes, but these days it's typically in the bib, and you'll often see when an athlete drops out of a race, whether it's midway through the course, there will be an official chasing them down quite fast to try and get that transponder back, for 2 reasons. 1, to just get it back so they can use it again, but 2, also to just make sure there's no foul play or confusion with athletes picking up just lap splits and things like that, which is done automatically through that transponder that they carry in their bib. But in the call room is where that happens. They get attached, and it can be a very nervous place in the world of athletics, and certainly before a race like this, where every athlete towing the line knows that the one sure thing in a cross-country race is that you're going to suffer, whether you finish first, last, or somewhere in between. But these athletes will all be starting to get into that suffer zone right now, but it is still relatively early days as they head out at the end of lap 2, and we're approaching the midway point through this race, which is, a reminder, 9,280 meters. A reminder too, if you're waiting for some of the upcoming races, the senior men's race will be coming up at 11:55 local time. That's 12:55 Central European time, and then we'll be wrapping things up with the mixed relay, featuring the individual brilliance, even though it's a team event, of Isaac Nader and indeed Salom Alfonso. They are the definition of a power couple. They are partners, boyfriend and girlfriend, and they will be teaming up for their club and trying to win gold, and it will take one heck of a performance to stop them in that mixed relay. The Sport Lisboa e Benfica they will be running for, Nader and Afonso, and they will be joined by Teresia Gateri and either Edson Barros or Miguel Moreira in that mixed relay, which I'm really looking forward to later on. But Playas de Castellón will also have a strong team, but it'll be great to see the world 1500 meter champion Isaac Nader in action in that mixed relay. That's coming up at 1:45 p.m. CET, 12:45 p.m. local time in Portugal, or if you're in Britain or Ireland as well, same time zone. But for now, it's all about the senior women's race, and we see that Sporting Club de Braga are up front in that team event, and that is no surprise whatsoever to see, given how well they're packing. Jacqueline Rotich and Mariana Machado right up there now, 1 and 2 getting midway through this race now, midway through the third of 5 laps, and it looks like Miriam Sharop there, who is just edging towards the front of the field. But given we do have 7 athletes, almost 8 athletes in that leading pack, I think we've still just yet to see the really decisive moves being made. But I'd expect that they would be. But of course, this race is run in conjunction event that predates it, I guess, which goes back a number of years. The European Champion Clubs Cross Country is the event that's been decided, but of course it is the Almond Blossom International Cross Country Race. And it's 49th edition, so Sharop is down as Kenya, and I believe she's not part of the, I suppose, the battle for European Champion Clubs supremacy, given she is not listed there under a European club. So Sharop, while she is in a race, is in a very different kind of race to the athletes here, and of course the Almond Blossom International Cross Country. It's better known as the Cross Internacional das Amendoeiras en Flor, which of course means almonds in bloom. The almond trees locally, and spring has arrived. Well, almost. But the temperatures are slowly climbing in the Algarve, currently about 14-15 degrees and overcast, but it is very decent running ground. It's about the probably the kind of conditions you'd probably choose if you were to run a 9-kilometer race. It's not cold, but it's certainly not warm, and the athletes won't be overheating too much during the race, especially with the sun very much covered. But Jacqueline Rotic is out front once again from Sporting Club de Braga. And I mentioned the Cross Internacional das Amendoeiras en Flor, the Almond Blossom International. It's been won by the likes of Carlos Lopez, Rosa Mota, some real legends of Portuguese and indeed global distance running over the years. It's got quite the roll of honour, the likes of Zersine Tedesse, even back in the day, former world cross country champion, and we will have many formidable stars of global and European distance running towing the line in the upcoming senior men's race, the likes of Thierry Ndikumonayo, who will be running for Playas de Castellón. We'll see how he gets on soon enough. That race will be coming up in about a half an hour's time, but for now it's all focused on the senior women's race, and we'll see how this plays out over the 4th and 5th lap. They're coming towards the end of 3 laps in this. And Carolina Campos in there for Bilbao, Jacqueline Rotic for Sporting Club Braga, Mariana Machado, Sporting Club Braga, also in there. So they come through with about 3 laps done, 2 to go. And the pace is cranking up, I think, at the front. At least I suspect it is, because that lead gap, or that lead group, which was once about 8 athletes, is heavily splintering now. So Rotic still pushing things along at the front. You mentioned that it possibly would have been a bit of a procession if Lekina Amabal had been present and correct and fully healthy, but a late withdrawal by the Playas Castellón athlete that cost him a chance at the individual team title. So it'll be very interesting to see who can come home in front in that battle for team supremacy. Up the front as they go around here on lap 4, Jacqueline Rotic Miriam Sherop, Elvani Nimbona. Trio just starting to break clear there of Carolina Campos, the Bilbao athlete, doing her best alongside her teammate, or just in front of her teammate, Ibarra Suarez, back in 5th. Very interesting to see where the 3rd Bilbao athlete is. There it is, Laura Montero, back in 16th. So Bilbao really entering the chat here in terms of the battle for overall team glory. But at the moment, SC Braga very much going well. Mariana Machado has dropped to 7th now, but she's hanging in there. Going to be a crucial scorer in the battle for team victory. As we look slightly further back down the field there, you'll see the results ticking along, the live splits on lap 3. And we're well into lap 4 now, and Jacqueline Rotich is out front, the 25-year-old Kenyan. It was a 15:08 5,000 meter runner. That was in Montreuil in France just about 4 years ago. And there's confirmation of the team standings after lap 3. So SC Braga, it is at the front. Bilbao there back in 3rd. But very little between it there in terms of the team standings. It's what, 18, 22 points. Those are the kind of tallies that are going to decide it. And there is precious little between those leading teams. So it could all change here on this penultimate lap, and indeed into the final lap. As we see Machado there is digging in, fighting hard. She's back in 7th. But she's got a good advantage over the athletes in 8th, 9th, 10th or so. So she's going to try and hang on to that 7th position. She's going to hope that Jacqueline Rotich, her teammate, stays towards the front. And then they will both be hoping that further back down the field, the likes of Eloise Laguel, or no, sorry, it's Laura Taborda of Sporting Club Braga, who's going to be their 3rd athlete. She's up to 12th at the moment. So Sporting Club Braga with 20 points or so. As we see there, Miriam Sherop of Kenya. And she is at the front at the moment. 23 minutes or so. There is Machado. And Machado there just hanging on just ahead of Deria Kunur of Fenerbahce. Fenerbahce, of course, I mentioned how well they were packing earlier. They have 3 in the top 10 at the moment. But it might not, funnily enough, it might not be enough to take victory, even with 3 in the top 10. So it's between SC Braga, Fenerbahce, and of course Bilbao. Who's it going to be though? Will it be Turkey? Will it be Spain? Jacqueline Rotich, will it be Portugal? Let's find out here. Over a little over a lap to run now. And it's starting to condense a bit there at the front again. Miriam Sherop in the white, Jacqueline Rotich in the red, and Elvani Nimbona in the luminous, I guess, yellow, fluorescent. And then just a slight gap back to Carolina Campos, who has been fighting very hard here to maintain contact, and she's done a brilliant job of it, you have to say, because she's been dropped a few times, but she's dug in, and whether that's a reflection of the phases she's going through, or whether it's a reflection of them just perhaps stepping off the gas and then just throwing a few points. Has developed here as we see Machado back in 6th place now is Machado, and she is fighting hard just ahead of Sumaya Erol of Fenerbahce and Deria Kunur of Fenerbahce in 7th and 8th, just behind her, and that's going to be big in the team event. So much like it is in any team sport, it often comes down to a series of individual battles, and in this, whether it's the likes of Rotich battling with Nimbona and Campos for those leading positions, or further back the likes of Machado just a few places down battling with Erol and Kunur of Fenerbahce for that 6th, 7th position. They all count, and I think it's going to take something around 20 points here to take victory in the team event. So you're going to have to be averaging have gone through the bell, and it is Miriam Sherop of Kenya ahead of Elvini Nimbona, and then Jacqueline Rotich up front ahead of Sherop and Nimbona with Campos. These four pretty much all running together, and then as you can see a 5-second gap back to Idara Suarez of Bilbao as well, who's having an amazing run as well. She's about 8 seconds clear of Mariana Machado. There's 12 seconds in arrears of the leaders, but it's going to be fascinating to get an update on this team event, because with a lap to run, it is so close. Just looking at Bilbao's athletes coming through there, they have an athlete in 4th and 5th, but their 3rd athlete yet to come through. So who's going to get to around that magic score, which I think was going to be around 20 points? I think whichever club, if any club can get in under 20 points, I think they're probably going to be the winners. Almost certainly, as we see Miriam Sherop starting to turn the screw here on this final lap at the Reyes de São João Sports Club in Albufeira. Just about 1,800 meters or so to run now, and she is starting to assert herself here, Miriam Sherop, ahead of Jacqueline Rotich and Elvini Nimbona. Sherop is certainly now asserting. Sherop, who's 26 now, was part of the Kenyan team that took gold at the World Cross Country Championships in the mixed relay back in 2023. She was a World Under-20 silver medalist back in 2018 and the African Under-20 champion in cross country in 2016. Sherop is certainly an athlete we would have expected to feature strongly here. She's a 15:06 athlete for 5,000 meters on the track, but doesn't have too many results to her name elsewhere over the past year, but has produced some fine results in the past and looks to be producing one here. And looks like she might be heading for a victory in the Almond Blossom International Cross Country, but will stay mostly focused on the battle for honours in the European Champions Club's cross country, as Sherop really seems to assert now at the finish. She looks to have saved it all for the final lap. 5 laps there are to run, and she is on the last. And there is an update on this team event, and SC Braga, Sporting Club Braga, have asserted, look at that, 1st, 5th and 9th for a total of just 15 points. And I mentioned if any club could get in under 20, they were probably going to be the victors. And it looks as if Sporting Club Braga are heading for victory. Jacqueline Rotich up front in that team battle. And then looking back down, Mariana Machado down in 6th. And then Laura Taborda, perhaps the star, in terms of a pound for pound effort. Laura Taborda would not be as accomplished as Jacqueline Rotich or indeed her clubmate Mariana Machado. But Taborda now up inside the top 10. And I mentioned so often, it's about how strong is your weakest link in cross country. How high can you get your final placed finisher? And Laura Taborda is anything but weak today. She has battled her way up into the top 10, and that's what's making the difference. That's why Sporting Club de Braga look to be on their way to victory in the team event, but much can change over this final kilometre. It looks like the battle for individual honours is going to be won by Kenya's Miriam Sherop, but Sporting Club Braga's Jacqueline Rotich, she's leading the way in the European Champion Clubs cross country. Elvini Nimbona of ASD Caivano then back in 3rd overall, and Carolina Campos of Bilbao leading that Bilbao 1-2 along with Adera Suarez. So Bilbao, if they could get their 3rd athlete up to inside the top 10, they would be able to challenge Sporting Club Braga for team victory, but at the moment with that estimated tally. Unconfirmed, of course, haven't reached the finish yet, but 15 points is a simply remarkable tally for 3 athletes in cross country, and they look well on their way to victory, as indeed in the overall race does Miriam Sherop of Kenya. There is a shot of Jacqueline Rotich of Sporting Club de Braga, as we see Sherop has just turned on the jets, turned on the style, and that is a very swift and sudden acceleration she injected there, just under a lap to run. And the Kenyan, this is the final turn, she runs past that start line, 130 meters to run from there, and it is going to be a bit of a procession for Miriam Sherop as she runs towards the finish. Slightly downhill, there's some just people out in the course directing her where to go. Just swing out to her right there. Only about 60 meters left now or so for Miriam Sherop, and the run of honour as she runs towards the finish in the Almond Blossom International Cross Country. It is going to be Kenya's Miriam Sherop takes victory with ease. Just over 31 minutes on the clock, and now back to the battle for supremacy in the European Champions Clubs Cross Country, and it is Jacqueline Rotich who's going to take the honours individually. It is a gold medal for her. It's probably 2 gold medals. Probably team gold also to follow for Rotich, but she leads home Elvini Nimbona. And then 4th overall, Carolina Campos of Bilbao with a brilliant run for her. She leads the Spanish team. Back in 4th. Her clubmate comes across the line now. That's Eduarda Suarez back in 5th. And then there is Mariana Machado. So 2 across the line for Sporting Club de Braga. And you can see that Machado is hanging there. She is just punch drunk with fatigue as she reaches the finish, struggling to stay on her feet. But she does. Sumete Erol there is the first of the Fenerbahce athletes to come through, ahead of Deria Kunur. Molly Smith there as well coming through, the Brit. Standings, but we're looking for the red vest of Sporting Club Braga coming through, and as we're getting confirmation, yeah, there it is, Laura Taborda came through across the line in 10th, so we don't need to be too skilled in the art of mathematics to work out that victory is going to go here to Sporting Club Braga. Jacqueline Rotich in 2nd, Mariana Machado in 6th, and then Laura Taborda in 10th. So that's a grand total of just 18 points for Sporting Club Braga. They are going to take victory. Let's just look at Fenerbahce as well. Fenerbahce had 7th, 8th and 11th. So that's 26 points for Fenerbahce. And then let's check out ASD Caivano, who are also faring very well, as they were 3rd and 16th. I think they've faded a little bit out of that, but no doubt, even though it's still as yet unofficial, but it is quite clear now that victory in the team event once again has gone to Sporting Club de Braga. The European Champion Clubs Cross Country. We'll await official confirmation on the results. As you can see there, back the tie for 19th has gone to a photo finish between Jessica Coyne of Livel and Valentina Gemetto of Kaivan. That would be the 3rd score for Caivano. And you see that it's trying to leave everything out on the course, rounding into the home straight. The final kicks are being launched, and victory on the day has gone to Sporting Club de Braga. It is a victory for Portugal in the team event. event, of course, the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. Well, it wasn't always known exactly as that. It's a very old historic event. It's been running since 1962. First event was run in Belgium, in Arlon. Women have been part of it since 1982, and it was initially held separately, but the last 21 years it's been held together, and this is the 61st edition of this event, which of course predates the European Cross Country Championships. But at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country, it's all about running for the local pride of your club. Place that more than likely for most of these athletes, they were first developed and sometimes developed all the way to the international stage by their club coaches. But it is brilliant to see so many international stars, some athletes who've won medals internationally, just not being above putting on their club colours and helping to elevate the name of their club, and indeed give their teammates a great day out and perhaps a medal on the international stage. Which, when you talk to athletes across sports, there is just always something different about the athletes they do it with day in, day out. When they get to toe the line with them, it just does feel an even more special achievement than perhaps the athletes on the national team or other training groups where you might not be as familiar with each other as so many athletes are when they're club mates. And they've been perhaps doing it for 15 or 20 years together ever since their grassroots days in the sport. But the victory today in the overall race at the Almond Blossom International Cross Country went to Miriam Sharop of Kenya. But in terms of the European Champion Clubs Cross Country, it was Jacqueline Rotich of Sporting Club de Braga who came home in front, taking gold ahead of Elvini Nimbona of AST Caivano, and then it was Carolina Campos next in with team victory. Although we're waiting official confirmation, team victory almost certainly has gone to Sporting Club de Braga. So next race coming up will be the senior men's race, which will be over the same distance in about 12-13 minutes time. And there it is, confirmation. Sporting Club de Braga takes team victory with ease in the end. 15 points. What a team tally that is, ahead of Fenerbahce and Bilbao back in second and third. It went to countback to decide that. And for Fenerbahce, I mentioned how well they're packing. It was Edibe Yajiz back in 10th place, who managed to help them to victory, and we see that helped them to second place on countback. But look at Sporting Club Braga there, celebrations ongoing for the Portuguese club, and they are right to be delighted. Laura Taborda, take a bow, because she was the one who came through for the third place scoring for them. You see the overall result there. There is your top 9. And it was Vanessa Carvalho was the 4th scorer for SC Braga, down in 21st place, so still a fine run from her as well, even though she didn't end up being a scoring member. Just goes to show the strength of that team from Club de Braga. But now we'll go back because it's presentation time for the men's under 20 result, and it was in 3rd position from Sporting Club de Portugal, Inês Ferreira, who came through very strongly. He stands in green and stands proud because he's got himself an individual bronze medal in the under 20 men's race. And then silver went to this man, Guillem Sanz of Playas de Castellón. The Spaniard ran so bravely, he was always towards the fore, and he was leading the chase for so much of the race from the leading pack. But in the end, when you're up against an athlete like this, it was a machine-like performance from the world under-20 cross-country champion, Franklin Kibet, a name we will be hearing a lot about in the future. His times may be nothing special just yet on the track. His best performance is done elsewhere, but anyone who wins a World Under-20 cross-country title and wins a European Champion Clubs cross-country title in the manner he did today, I'm sure you will be going very, very far in the sport and will be lighting it up in many other arenas going on today in Albufeira. So Franklin Cabet, the under-20 men's champion, European champion clubs cross country. Ian Sanz applies the Castellón takes silver, and Denise Ferreira of Sporting Club de Portugal takes the bronze. Very dramatic music, I have to say. But no harm to have the bit of hype. The Portuguese always do the staging so well at their events. The Lisbon European cross-country championships back in 2019 were brilliant as well. Jakob Ingebrigtsen was doing his thing in the junior race there. And again, Lagoa in Portugal did a fantastic job at the European cross-country championships just before Christmas. Albufeira has done a spectacular job as well in recent years. As we see confirmation now of that senior women's result, Miriam Sherop from Kenya taking overall victory in the Almond Blossom International Cross Country. Jacqueline Rotich then leading the way home just behind her. More presentations about to come on now. This will be the under-20 men's team event as we see confirmation of the team result in that senior women's race. Sporting Club de Braga taking victory in convincing style. And it was countback to decide things for the silver medal. But Rui Costa, who is the technical director of this European Champion Clubs cross country, he did say at the press conference that he was hoping to have Benfica or Sporting as the men's champions, but Braga as the women's champions. And he said to have both Benfica and Sporting in the top two in the relay then at the end of the day would be the icing on the cake. So there's three wishes perhaps for the technical director, who is obviously a bit of a declared bias as a Portuguese, a local. But part one of that three-step plan to his icing on the cake has been completed with SC Braga taking victory in the women's team event at senior level. We'll see what follows in the senior men's race and indeed of course in the mixed relay to follow. But for now it's back to the under-20 men's presentation, and it was Sport Project VCO who took third place in that men's under-20 men's race, 10th, 14th and 18th. On that podium, there wasn't much in at the end. It was Stefano Pasinetti who led them home in 10th, Stefano Berardi in 14th, and Christian Piana rounding out the scoring in 18th, and their fourth scorer, Christian Sweeney, back in 22nd. Silver medal going to Sporting Club de Portugal. Of course, we know who led them home. He's on the right there. It was a fine performance for them. In second place, Franklin Cabet on the right led them home. They had a convincing win. Denis Ferreira as well though picked up his second medal of the day. That individual bronze. Also picks up team silver. And then the third scorer here.
And the champions of the medalists with 21 points from
winners, once again, it was Playas de Castellón. And of course, led by Guillaume Sanz, individual silver. Well, it turns to team gold for them. Samuel Alonso back in 6th position then, not far behind at all, and then it was Alejandro Juan back in 13th, who rounded out their team scoring. That was enough to hand the Spanish club victory yet again. They've taken so many medals at this event over the years, but Playas de Castellón, once again, stand tall, stand proud on that podium, and a well-deserved victory for them in the team event. Martí Pons was their 4th scorer, or their 4th athlete, down in 49th position. So, big felicidades to Playas de Castellón as they do their triumphant celebration for the photographers with that team trophy and indeed gold medals all around for the quartet from the Spanish club. And Sporting Club de Portugal standing tall, standing proud with that club flag. Silver medals for them, and that utterly dominant individual performance by Franklin Cabet. What performance that was. So just one more individual race left to come, and it is the senior men's. That will be run over 9,280 meters. Here's the lineup. 5 laps in total. You'll know the drill by now. The Areas de São João Sports Club, and there are some of the leading contenders. Start list for the senior men's. And there is lots of talent in here. The likes of Thierry Ndico Munayo of Playas de Castellón, Rodrigo Quizera, Playas de Castellón. Certainly both of them will be featuring very strongly. Should be. Oscar Chelimo as well, of Atletica Casone Noceto, the Italian club, but he's of course Ugandan and he is very accomplished as well. We'll be expecting to see him towards the front. Charles Rotich as well of Kenya. He's running for, there he is in the green stripes, Sporting Club de Portugal. Look out for him. Rui Pinto is in there as well for Sporting Club de Portugal. From Playas de Castellón, look out for Miguel Angel Martinez, who was 7th last year as well. And this should be a fascinating battle as well for team honours. But they have about just over 9,000 meters to get themselves sorted out, and they're awaiting the starting command at the Cross Internacional des Amendoreiras in Flor, better known as the Almond Blossom International Cross Country Race, which of course is run in conjunction with the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. And this is a tribute It's currently ongoing to Artur Lara Ramos, who was an athlete, manager and coach locally, who just passed away last December. Fondly remembered on the day as a man who gave so much to the local region and indeed to the sport itself.
No crescimento, organização e consolidação da modalidade. Ao longo de vários anos, presidiu a Associação de Atletismo do Algarve, impulsionando o crescimento do número de atletas, clubes e provas. Paralelamente às suas responsabilidades de âmbito nacional, nomeadamente como diretor técnico e selecionador nacional, cargos que reduzem e reconhecem o seu prestígio e competência. O seu legado inclui ainda a idealizar e valorizar eventos emblemáticos.
And Artur Lara Ramos passed away there just 26th of December. He was, of course, the historical director of the Amendoras cross-country race. It's great to have just a few moments before this senior men's race to
pelo presidente da Associação de Atletismo do Algarve, Francisco e também a presença dos filhos de Artur Ramos, André Ramos e Filipe Ramos.
As we remember the influence, of course, of Artur Lara Ramos. Athlete to coach to official to meeting director, he served a lot of different roles in the sport. Fondly remembered by all. Athletics in the Algarve, of course the Algarve Athletics Association, heavily involved in the organisation of this event, and with the European Clubs Federation. Artur Lara Ramos. Countdown is almost over for these athletes who've been standing, twitching, nervously waiting for the start of this senior men's race at the European Champion Clubs cross country. And just over 9 kilometers ahead of them. And they're pretty much ready to get underway here. And this, well, it'll be interesting to see if this is a fast and furious start or if they take things a little bit handier. There are a number of truly world-class operators in this field, so that select handful may just intimidate some of the others into going out fast. We'll see how fast they want to go out. As we've seen in previous races, it has tended to be the case where the athletes who are cut above the field have tended to wait until the latter half before exerting their supremacy. We'll see what exactly happens here as they run through the first 100 meters or so, and expect to see the green vest of Playa de Castellón featuring very strongly here. I did mention that Rui Costa, the meeting director, was hoping for 3 wishes today. That was to have Braga take victory in the women's events, and then Benfica or Sporting also doing it on the men's side, and then of course to have Benfica and Sporting go top 2 in the relay. But given the strength that's in there against them, that might prove quite a difficult assignment, you'd have to imagine. And given the strength that is in the Playa de Castellón team, it's also going to prove quite difficult. But early on here, as we go through the first few 100 meters, it is Thierry Lucky Kunda is in there from Playas Castellon. Rodrigo Quizera as well. Hamish Hickey is also running quite strongly there. But it is still very early days in this senior men's race. But it looks like 3 athletes just starting to break away here. On this first of 5 laps that we will have in the senior men's race. And it is a race that I mentioned has been run by some very accomplished athletes in the past, the likes of Jacob Kiplimo, who is related to Oscar Chelimo, who is lining out today. Sarcine Tedesse, of course, was a 2-time winner at this event. The likes of Fernando Ribeiro as well, that Portuguese great. She won back in 2005. But you can tell by the way that field is starting to string out. It is a swift pace that has been put on here. And they are moving through this opening lap. And this will make it a true test. Some of the other races saw a little bit more shadow boxing, but this is certainly aggressive from the gun. And we'll try and get a better look at the team standings as they pass through, but it is Charles Rotich there, who is very much pushing the pace towards the front with Sporting Club. But it is still very early days so far, just about 3 minutes or so into the race now. Certainly have to imagine that Thierry Ndikamunayo will be very much prominent here. He's currently just running back in 3rd position there. And Ndikamunayo, of course, the reigning European cross-country champion. What a battle that was with Jimmy Gressier in December. But he's currently just sitting back there in 3rd at the moment on Playas Castellon. And he'll be quite comfortable at the moment, Ndikamunayo. He's a 12:47 5,000 metre man on the track. That was in Oslo last year. 26:49 national record for Spain. That is still the Spanish 10,000 metre record. He ran at the Paris Olympics, Ndikamunayo, a year and a half ago or so now. But he will fancy his chances, not just of team gold, but also individual gold. But last year, that was the man who is his clubmate, Rodrigo Quizera. They trained together, the two of them, under coach Luis Tolva, often up at Sierra Nevada at altitude, in central Spain, or in Font Romeu in the French Pyrenees, just across the Spanish border. 2 very good spots for altitude training. And Ndikamunayo and Quizera, you'd have to expect, are going to be to the fore here as well. But Charles Rotich of Kenya is a formidable competitor as well, and he is in there at the moment. Mixing it up between them, he's a 61-minute half marathoner, is Rotich. He's sitting in 2nd at the moment. He's a 13:26 5,000 metre man on the track. But some of his performances certainly suggest that he can do better than that. He was 6th at the World Under-20 Cross-Country Championships, was Quizera back in 2024. So we're coming towards the end of lap 1. It is Rodrigo Quizera of Playas Castellon on the right there, just ahead of Charles Rotich of Sporting Club de Portugal. And then a bit of a gap then, Thierry Ndikamunayo just conceding there to some of the other athletes. Abdirahman Aferdi of Vicky Foods there coming through. And Oscar Chelimo also now making his presence felt towards the front. Kadur Saeed of Alez Cévennes also now making his presence felt on that leading pack, and Victor Komasop of Benfica also in there as well. So they just complete the first lap, and as we see, it is the man who took victory in 2023 individually and 2025, Rodrigo Quizera, native of Burundi. And Kwizera is very accomplished, the 26-year-old. Set the national record for Burundi for 10 kilometers on the road last year over in Germany, in Herzogenaurach. I've probably pronounced that wrong. Apologies to any German viewers, but 26:54 was his time on the roads in Germany in April last year. So he and Ndika Mwanayo, they know each other very well, of course. They're good friends, they're training partners. They're both born and raised in Burundi and both now based in Spain. Ndika Mwanayo has spoken recently about trying to get back he has a wife and a child, newborn child, last year. And they are currently in Burundi, and he mentioned about some of the logistical issues and trying to get back there and visit and stuff. But he has been based in Spain now for several years, Ndika Mwanayo, and he is, of course, a naturalized citizen. He has set the national records and done so much in the colours of Spain in recent years. He was 15th in the Olympic 5,000 metres in Paris, was Ndika Mwanayo. 9th last year in the World Championships in Tokyo in over 10,000 metres. He was also 9th in Paris the year before that. But he has had so many great performances. Ndika Mwanayo, I think he's just sitting in at the moment there, back in 4th, 5th position. And a very notable run at the World Cross Country Championships as well last month, just about 4 weeks ago now, in Tallahassee in Florida. He finished 8th over there, and he has since finished 4th at the Cross Country Tour event in El Goibar against the accomplished international field there. The likes of Barihu Aragawi took victory, and you can just see Ndika Mwanayo just keeping tabs really on the leaders at the moment. The likes of Kwizera, his clubmate, the likes of Charles Rotich. But it's kind of that point in a cross-country race where you can't win the race, but you can certainly lose it if you get things wrong on the second of 5 laps. But now it looks like that leading pack. That leading pack is just starting to splinter just a little. Chalimo has certainly made his presence felt here at the front. He is starting to push things along, and you can see the effect is quite dramatic. Rodrigo Kwizera, the 2-time former individual champion, Thierry Ndika Mwanayo, who was champion individually for Playas Castellón back in 2024 in this event. And Kwizera, in fact, is 3-time champion, I should say, not 2. But he is there in the green vest of Playas Castellón. He's the leading athlete from Playas Castellón. He's 3rd at the moment. But perhaps now Chalimo just backing off again. And Charles Rotich of Sporting Club de Portugal coming through. And Charles Rotich, who ran 28:15 for 10 kilometres to win the Portuguese 10-kilometre title on the roads. That was last year. And he is pressing things along here at the front. But you would have to imagine that the likes of Kwizera, the likes of Ndika Mwanayo and Oscar Chalimo, while judging off that strong move by Oscar Chalimo, you'd suspect he has plenty more running left to do in this event. And Victor Komasop also very much in there. So, lap 2, almost complete for these men. They swing a left-hand turn here, pretty much a 90-degree turn. They'll have a short run and then another 90-degree turn. And it looks like the leading pack has been reduced to about 7 men at the moment, 8 men maybe, just pulling clear. And it is Charles Rotich of Sporting Club de Portugal who leads the way. likes of Rodrigo Quizera looking for a 4th individual title. He's back in 2nd. And then look out for Oscar Chelimo of Atletica Casone Noceta, the Italian club. And Chelimo, the 24-year-old, he's hit the crossbar, so to speak, a lot of times in this event in the past in terms of chasing an individual gold. He was 4th last year with Chelimo. He was 2nd in 2024. Back in 2023 and 2022, he was also 2nd. So 3 silver medals, and then perhaps most annoyingly of all, a 4th place finish last year for Chelimo. So the Ugandan will be very keen to make a statement. He's in the white vest there, and no more annoying position to finish in running than 4th, and he'll be keen to get back on an individual podium, perhaps challenge for an individual gold today. But looking back there, back to 6th place, Thierry Ndikamonayo, given how he ran at the World Cross Country and indeed European Cross Country in recent months. You would have to favour him to come through strongly here, but he's playing quite a supporting cast role at the moment. Back in about 7th position, 6th position. He'll be hoping to help Playa de Castellón to team gold. But at the moment, he is letting the others duke it out up front, and he is just keeping a watching brief there back in 6th position in Ndikamonayo, but perhaps now just sensing that things are picking up, moves up to 5th, but although it is only coming up to midway point in this race, I think if you're Ndikamonayo's coach or manager, you'd probably like to see him just get a little bit closer there and close up that gap, because once they go, they often stay gone. As we get a quick look at that team standings there, and no surprise to see Playas Castellón with 3 in the top 7 or so, leading the way there ahead of Vicky Foods, the Spanish club, and Atletica Casone, led by Oscar Chelimo, currently in 3rd. But no surprise, Playas de Castellón, who took victory in the team events for the past 3 years, look well on their way to making it 4 in a row. So lap 3 in the senior men's race, and it is starting to really splinter now up front. In this kind of concertina effect, I suppose, where it stretches out and then comes back together almost like an accordion. But at the moment, these men, it looks like a group of 5 starting to break away up front. Let's see if they can maintain this. Ndikamonayo just taking a quick glance around there, back to some of the other rivals, and indeed his teammate Miguel Shazara, who is back in 7th at the moment, and perhaps Ndikamonayo just trying to encourage him along in this battle for team glory. It so often helps, of course, in a cross-country race, just mentally, if you can latch on to a teammate, a familiar face, and maybe between breaths offer each other a quick word of support, and someone to just mentally, almost more than physically, latch onto and try to help you up. Can be such a mentally draining effect cross country, a draining sport that it is, constantly breaking up your rhythm. And as you can see there, while it is good running ground, they're never getting more than, about 100 meters of kind of good running ground before there's just something, perhaps a little divot in the ground, perhaps those logs they have to jump, or a tight turn that just disrupts the rhythm. And the athletes who rise to the top in cross country are the athletes who just can maintain that poise, that balance. Greatest cross-country runner of all time, pretty much undisputed, is Kenenisa Bekele on the men's side, and he just always had that poise, that beautiful balance to his running, where no matter how tight the turns, no matter how deep or dry the underfoot conditions, he could just handle it all and maintain his momentum throughout the race. That is so often what counts in cross-country, especially through sections like this, because you can see there that Charles Rotich of Sporting Club de Portugal, he's just using that opportunity and just those little disruptions as a chance to apply some pressure, and really it's starting to work, because Thierry Ndikamonayo has just been gapped just a little bit there, and that is a dangerous gap that's starting to open there for Ndikamonayo, because while you're marking the men at the back of that group, easily one could make a move off the front, and then Ndikamonayo, you can suddenly find yourself in a tricky situation as you try to close down that advantage. But Ndikamonayo currently just about 10 meters it is there off the back of Oscar Chelimo in that white vest, and well, this isn't the apex of his cross-country season, of course. Enrico Monaio is turning out for the team. Playas de Castellón trying to get them a 4th straight team victory. He will very much not want to concede individually here as well. He knows he's good enough to be on that podium challenging for honours. But if he wants to do that as they come through with a little over 2 laps to run, he has just got to work so hard here to close that small gap of about 10 metres and latch on to this leading quartet of Rodrigo Quezera, Charles Rotic, Victor Kimosop and Oscar Chilimo. So there we have confirmation. Charles Rotic coming through. Rodrigo Quezera in 2nd. Victor Kimosop of Benfica. Kimosop back in 3rd. And Oscar Chilimo, the Ugandan running for the Italian club, back in 4th. And Thierry Enrico Monaio back in 5th. And now the gaps are really starting to open after that. As we can see, Miguel Chazara of Playa Castellón is back in 7th, and then just looking down the list, I think, yeah, it looks like Playas de Castellón are going to be unstoppable in that battle for team glory. They look like they're very much on their way to a 4th straight success in the team event. And speaking of 4th successes, is that man Rodrigo Quezera on the way to his 4th victory in just 5 years individually. He's a man who knows how to show up at this event and get the job done, running for Playas de Castellón. He took victory individually in 2022, 2023 and 2025. He's putting the pressure on and staking his claim for glory, certainly in 2026. But he has company, unwanted company, in the form of Oscar Chilimo. And Chilimo, the Ugandan, the 24-year-old, as I mentioned, 12:4:54 he's run on the track for 5,000 metres. Chilimo, he's a 7:33 3K athlete. That was last year in Budapest he did that. He was 18th in the World Championships in Tokyo over 10,000 metres last year. Chilimo, 16th over 10,000 metres at the Tokyo Olympics. And there are the team standings. Playas Castellón ahead of Vicky Foods. So it's a Spanish 1-2 at the moment in the team event, but plenty of running left to do. But in terms of the battle for individual glory, well, you don't want to call it too early, but it looks like it's starting to boil down to 2. And those 2 are Oscar Chilimo, the man who has hit the crossbar, who's finished 2nd 3 times in this event, and who was 4th last year. He wants that gold. This could be the year to get it. But right behind him is a man who knows how to get the job done on this stage. A 3-time champion, Rodrigo Quezera. Quezera, who has been based in Spain now for a number of years, he is a Spanish allegiance. He's been living in Spain since 2019, and of course he does train with Thierry Enrico Monaio under the guidance of coach Luis Tolera at the Playas de Castellón club. And Quezera digging in here. He's kind of opted out, or had to opt out of certain championships in recent years in terms of his native country Burundi, because of course the longer, the most up-to-date competition you have on your results there is a waiting period enforced. And so he's been in the process of declaring his allegiance for Spain in recent years. He's still awaiting that. And as a result, he's just opting out of championships internationally in terms of representing Burundi in the meantime. But it is expected that he will be cleared to compete for Spain in the upcoming years, Rodrigo Quezera, and he'll be no doubt joining his clubmate and training partner Thierry Enrico Monaio on the international stage. But for now, he's running for his club, Playas de Castellón. He's on the way to lead them, it looks like, to Team Gold. Can he get another individual gold? Because right in front of him is a man who desperately wants an individual gold. This is, of course, a team event, more so than most other cross-country races, the European Champion Clubs cross-country. heavily weighted on the team, but there are, of course, individual titles, individual medals to be handed out. And right now, Oscar Chelimo, who finished fourth last year, who finished second for the 3 years before that, is desperately in search of his first individual gold medal at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. But Rodrigo Quezera of Burundi, with a little over a lap to go, both of them there just glancing to their left, seeing what's coming from behind. But the danger, it looks, is only around them. It is Quezera and Chelimo. It is Playas de Castellón against Atletica Casone. It is the Spanish club against the Italian club. And it is a native of Burundi and a native of Uganda. And they are taking each other on here. Two countries that have produced so many great distance runners over the years and have such a strong bearing at events like the World Cross Country Championships. And Chelimo, I mentioned, he's well known as a track runner, but also very diverse in his abilities. He's said in an interview, he has 30 siblings in total, which isn't unusual in that part of the world, of course. And one of them, I believe, is indeed Jacob Chelimo, who was in the news recently with his half marathon record in Barcelona not quite being ratified due to the proximity of the lead car. Lots of debate in Spanish and indeed international athletics about that, but Jacob Chelimo, who ran under 57 minutes, way under 57 minutes for the half marathon. Just a truly remarkable time, but he'll have to do it again, of course, if he wants it to stand as a world record. World record for the meantime stands to Yomif Kijelcha. But Oscar Chelimo, meanwhile, is hitting the front here, running for the Italian club Atletica Casone. The 24-year-old is applying plenty of pressure here to Rodrigo Quezera of Burundi, and it looks like a head-to-head match. I'm not sure why Chelimo is really looking at his watch there, because there's not too much time pressure on here, and I'm not sure it really matters in cross-country when you're running on a different surface and different undulations. What valuable information you could really be getting from a watch at this part of the race, but perhaps it's just the force of habit. And he is applying plenty pressure, trying to break Rodrigo Quezera, but having finished second 3 times, Oscar Chelimo in 2022, 23 and 24. It looks like he could be headed for yet another silver medal, because the man who has taken gold in 2022, 2023 and 2025, Rodrigo Quezera, is applying lots of pressure up front and looks to have broken clear. He's got about a 15-meter advantage here as they head through this final lap. It looks like Rodrigo Quezera, the 26-year-old from Burundi, who should be running for Spain in the years ahead on the international stage. Today he's running for Playas de Castellón, and he has injected a vicious surge there with about a kilometer to run, and he is pulled well clear of Oscar Chelimo, and he looks to be on his way to gold. Quezera looks like he's going to do it yet again. This will make it 4 titles at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country in just 5 years. As I said, he knows how to get the job done. And will he lead his team, Playas de Castellón, to team gold? At the moment, it looks like it. So a brilliant drone shot there. That drone must have been flying pretty close to the athletes, I'd imagine, because just a few meters away there as Quezera, but it's a brilliant shot to just see the mechanics and just how he's moving across the ground there, because that is a tricky section. The sand getting quite deep, it's just quite soft beneath your feet, quite undulating, and even in areas where it's not, it's quite tricky to navigate that kind of terrain, because when the ground isn't soft and it's hard and lumpy and uneven like that, it really does challenge your core stability. All that kind of work that distance runners love to hate, that no one really enjoys doing in terms of athletes, but they have to do it, develop that core strength. It all pays off in terms of staying injury free, but it especially pays off on terrain like this that's very uneven, lots of turns, because that all puts a different level of strain on those core stabilizer muscles. And here, as we see, Rodrigo Quezera, the 26-year-old, is on his way to yet another victory at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. Oscar Chelimo looks to be headed for another silver. Gonna see who it is who manages to get the bronze. Although you never know, Chelimo, now that he's been broken in that battle for silver, so often athletes can just, physically or mentally, whichever it is more, they can often just fall apart a little when the gold is gone. And the gold is gone, and it's headed to this man, Rodrigo Quezera of Playas Castellon. He climbs that little mini hill, and at the top of it, he just uses the opportunity to take a look around. I'm sure his coach would have preferred if he'd do that on flat terrain, given it can all be a little tricky. But by now, Rodrigo Quezera is very much in celebration mode. He was third in this race in 2024, but he took victory in 2022, 2023 and 2025. And now in 2026, Rodrigo Quezera, his lap of honour is very much already underway with about 100 metres to run. The 26-year-old who was 7th in the World Championships 2.5 years ago in Budapest. He was 8th at the World Cross Country Championships in 2023. And for the 4th time, Rodrigo Quezera is on his way to victory and the senior men's title at the European Champions Clubs Cross Country. And it looks like he's also going to lead his club, Playas de Castellon, to gold. Silver is going to go to Oscar Chelimo, the Ugandan running for the Italian club Atletica Casone Noceto. He takes second, and then it is Charles Rotich, the Sporting Club athlete, the Portuguese club. He's a Kenyan native. He comes through for individual bronze. And an excellent display there it was. So bronze goes to Charles Rotich. 4th place then, Victor Kimosop of Benfica. And then Thierry Ndikomonayo of Playas de Castellon. 5th place for him. So no individual medal for Ndikomonayo to round out the latter end of his cross-country season, but it looks like, assuming the 3rd athlete from Playas de Castellon hasn't fallen to pieces, it looks like it's going to be gold for Playas de Castellon for the 4th year in a row in the team event. We'll await official confirmation on that because we're going to be waiting on all the 3rd and 4th place finishers and everything to get totted up. Some very tired athletes here coming across the line in this race, which is just over 9,000 metres. And that's not, of course, the end of the action. Traditionally, of course, events like the European and World Cross Country Championships finish with the senior individual races, but not at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. A team event, in the true sense of a team event, is going to finish with a team event, and it will be the mixed relay. We say 4 by 1,500 metres, but of course the legs are not all the same length. The lap is indeed about 1,500 metres, but of course the opening leg is going to be a little longer. So that's going to be coming up in about 15 minutes time. A few presentations then to get through as we see the athletes towards the latter half of the field coming across the line in this senior men's race. But we're still awaiting the official confirmation of results. Perhaps we'll be getting them now, hopefully. But not quite in the system yet, so can't yet confirm. As you see, another of the Benfica athletes. And I had mentioned that Rui Costa, the technical director, said that they had hoped to have Benfica or Sporting as the men's champions. And while it was a spirited effort, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Playas de Castellon who take victory in that. There are the results now starting to come through in that senior men's race officially. A few gremlins in the system initially, but officials doing a brilliant job on keeping everyone up to date on what exactly is happening. But Rodrigo Quezera, 27:18 or so there on the clock. He is certainly the individual gold medalist. We should get an official confirmation soon on the team scoring, and we'll be able to tell you if indeed, as suspected, the Playas de Castellon have taken senior men's glory for the 4th year. And of of course, they have had the last 4 individual winners as well. Rodrigo Quezera back in 2022 and 2023. Thierry Mdikamonayo in 2024. And indeed Quezera again last year and this year. So 5 individual winners on the trot for Playas de Castellón. And it looks like it's going to be 4 team titles in a row. Playas de Castellón, dominant once again. They brought the firepower and they have just unleashed it on the course and on this race in fine style. And Rodrigo Quezera, as we see there, running alongside with Charles Rotich in the green and white stripes, and Thierry Mdikamonayo there in the sunglasses, just back in 6th. He never quite got into the race, but it has been a busy season for him. Of course, he will have targeted the European cross country before Christmas. Thrilling finish it was there to him to beat Jimmy Gressier of France, the world 10,000 meter champion, to the line. And Mdikamonayo just couldn't really land a blow in this event, but his club mate, his training partner and good friend Rodrigo Quezera has done it. And there is the team standings, and it looks like Playas Castellón have been beaten. Atletica Casone confirmed as the champions in that team event. And is that correct? Okay, that is, I'm pretty sure those results are not correct, because Luca Alfieri there of Atletica Casone showing up in 3rd place. And he did not finish 3rd. So I'll just hold off on making any bold declarations there about that men's race. Because as I'm currently looking at the live results, it's not quite showing the results I'd suspected, or the race I was watching anyway. So I think we might have a few little issues in the system, but no medals have yet been handed out, so just take them all with a pinch of salt for now, those results we just saw, as we await official confirmation. I'm sure they will have sorted everything out by the time we actually get to the presentation time. But we've got one more race left to come, and that's just in about 12 minutes time. I'm looking through some of the live results system here, and yeah, the live results now seems to have corrected things. Playas Castellón in the team standings anyway, 13 points showing up in the live results system. Atletica Casone of Italy 2nd with 23 points, and Vicky Foods, Spanish club, 3rd with 27 points. So as suspected, and yes, in contrast to what that graphic displayed, I think indeed that Playas Castellón have obliged and taken the team title for the 4th year in a row with what looks like a team total of just 13 points. Astonishing stuff from them. First up, it's going to be the senior women's presentation. First up, it's going to be the individuals.
Ladies and gentlemen, the victory ceremony of the seniors women's race. The medals will be presented by Mayor of Albufeira Municipality, Rui Cristina, Council Member of Albufeira Municipality, Cristina Bravo.
So, senior women's presentation time. And if you were watching this just a while ago, you'll have known that, of course, the European Champion Clubs Cross Country is run in conjunction with the Almond Blossom International Cross Country. And the athlete who led the field home was not part of the European Champion Club Cross Country. So, the athlete who finished 4th in the overall race was this athlete Carolina Campos of Bilbao. But of course, given Sherop was not part of the European Champion Clubs race, she didn't count towards that, and hence Campos is the bronze medalist individually, and Elvini Nimbona of ASD Caivano in Italy is the silver medalist in the senior women's race at the European Champions Club cross country. And then from the Sporting Club Braga in Portugal, the senior women's individual champion at the European Champion Clubs cross country for 2026 is Jacqueline Rotic. A tremendous performance it was by Rotic to take victory. And she stands proud and stands tall. Saw a bit more. Confirmation there of the senior men's result. Rodrigo Quezera once again taking victory. And what a commanding performance it was by the athlete from Burundi, who is soon to be a naturalized Spanish citizen and no doubt will be wearing those Spanish colours with honour on the international stage. Quezera takes victory. Oscar Chalimo in second. And it was Charles Rotic back in third, taking the bronze. We get a full rundown on those results. And with a first place finish, a fifth place finish, and a seventh place finish. Remarkable team tally of just 13 points for Playas de Castellón. They take individual honours as we see the full rundown of all the athletes in that senior men's race. 70 of them in total across the line, and it's now going to be presentation time, I think, for the senior women's team event. And in third place here in the women's team event, it was Bilbao, and don't they look happy about it? The excitement is obvious there as they prepare to
bronze medalist with 23 points from Spain, Bilbao Atletismo.
So Bilbao take the bronze medals, and don't they look happy about it? Well done to them. led by Carolina Campos in 4th place. Eduarda Suarez was back in 5th. And then their 3rd scorer, Laura Montero, back in 17th, ensured a brilliant bronze medal. Carla Pereira wasn't far behind there, their 4th athlete. She was 24th. So well done to Carla Pereira, Laura Montero, Carolina Campos and Eduarda Suarez. A brilliant bronze for the Spanish.
Medalists with 23 points from Turkey, Fenerbahce. And the first place gold medalist with 15 points from Portugal, Sporting Club de Braga.
So, team victory. Hard-earned victory it was, but a brilliant victory for SC Braga, Sporting Club de Braga in Portugal. 15 points in total their tally. Fenerbahce packing so well there with 4 in the top 13 to take the silver. But it wasn't to be enough because they came up against an inspired performance that it was. Jacqueline Rotic in 2nd, Mariana Machado in 6th, Laura. So look at that for an amazing team tally. 1st, 5th and 9th. And brilliant as well from Fenerbahce to take the silver. 3 in the top 10. But ultimately coming up second best by some distance, because what a performance by Sporting Club Braga. Portuguese on top in Portugal in the Algarve. And that yellow and navy flag of Fenerbahce is back, proudly being held aloft, and indeed the flag of Braga, and indeed the scarf. They've got it all. That would be a photo for them to remember. Brilliant performances in a hard-fought team contest in the senior women's race at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country, and that is brilliantly posed there with the trophy held aloft, just linking the athletes just beneath that Portuguese flag, and they have done their club and done their country proud. European Champion Clubs Cross Country. They are the Senior Women's Champion Club for 2026. And it looks like Mariana Machado is trying to pop some champagne there. They do enjoy their sparkling wines in Portugal, and someone's about to get doused, I suspect. Maybe some of the photographers. She's sparing her teammates, in fairness, for now. But there they are, celebrations ongoing, and very well done to the athletes from Sporting Club Braga, who will be testing the foundations of that podium, the structural integrity of it, but it's holding up pretty well now. And some drinks of some form are flowing and flying into the sky in celebration of that senior women's title with a remarkable performance. 3 athletes, just 15 points. Sporting Club Braga take victory, and here is the official confirmation. And indeed, the few issues that were present earlier in the results are now corrected, and indeed, Playas de Castellón have been crowned senior men's champions once again for the 4th year in succession. Remarkable performance by them to keep showing up and keep getting it done. Will they get it done here? Because in this mixed relay, it's about to get underway. And we're going to have 8 teams going to the line in the mixed relay, which is the final event of the 2026 European Champion Clubs Cross Country. Playas de Castellón, SL Benfica, Sporting Club de Portugal, Universidad de León Sprint Atletismo, DMA, which stands for Décime Mesure Athlétisme, from France. From Ireland, Dublin City Harriers, they're in the blue there, second from the right. NS Track Club, also from Ireland, they're in the red, second from the left. And then LV Winter Tour from Germany. And if you're wondering what LV stands for, it's Leichtathletik Vereinigung. So they're also in there. 8 teams, but the one that will be heavily favoured for victory, and I don't think that's an exaggeration, is SL Benfica. Sport Lisboa Benfica. They're better known, of course, in football and athletics terms, just as Benfica, but they possess 2 weapons in terms of middle distance running for this relay, in the form of Isaac Nader, the world 1500 meter champion, and of course his partner Salome Afonso, who was a 2-time medalist at the European Indoors last year, a world finalist over 1500 meters last year. She finished 12th there, and it'll be fascinating to see how she goes and how they lay out their order of competitor here, because athletes, interesting to see the strategy that they go with here, because it looks as if Benfica have not put Nader on the opening leg, and they had to only declare their competing athletes with 90 minutes to go, the deadline. Unlike at other mixed relays we've seen in the past, the order is set here. You could not mix up the sexes and the genders in terms of who runs in which positions. It has to be man, woman, man, woman. And so that's the way it is. And it makes most sense, of course, for a man to be running first, because this opening leg is slightly longer. It is a 1630 meter leg, just because of that initial finishing straight that brings them down to the finish. And from there, of course, it's 1500 meters. So, but it is a tactical decision, of course, that different athletes, and it's clear that Benfica have decided to go with Nader later in the race to play their strongest card on leg 3 rather than leg 1. And perhaps they knew that the opening leg would turn into exactly this, which is a very cagey opening leg where people are very much looking at each other here through the first 400 meters or so, very cautious, and you can understand perhaps why they were keen, Benfica. What are we, 600 meters or so now into the race, but you can see why Benfica were quite keen to perhaps just save their greatest weapon for the third leg, because while this leg is longer and while perhaps you could just blow the race to pieces and put Nader on the opening leg, Nader of course will have a busy racing schedule, and perhaps not wanting to leave it all out there and blow this race apart on the opening leg, they've decided that they're good enough to stay in contention via their opening athlete, Edson Barrios, who is running in second position there at the moment, Barros. And he is a very good athlete as well. He's a 3:39 1500 meter runner on the track. Was recently third at the Portuguese Championships on the road over 10 kilometers, 28:23 there. So Barros, certainly an athlete who's going to be strong enough to keep them in this race. It is Nuno Pereira there of Sporting Club de Portugal, and it is Keno Boyle from NS Track. And Mohamed Halaf it is then of Playas Castellon in that green vest, back in 5th. Then from Dublin City Harriers, it's Paul Delahunty, he's in the blue there. And then from LV Winter Tour, it's David Knaus. And meanwhile, Alberto Hiosa is running for the University Leon Sprint, but it's starting to splinter apart a little bit here. And you can see there Mohamed Halaf of Playas Castellon just edging past NS Track Club's Keno Boyle, and just keen to get a little bit closer there. But the battle up the front here, keenly contested at the moment. We'll see how this shakes out as we come towards the end of the leg, but the athletes in behind there just trying their best to close up, but it can be quite difficult to close in those technical turns because the athletes out front go into those turns at pace. They tend to come out at pace as well, and it's just very hard to get into a rhythm. That's why on technical courses it can be that little bit harder to close those gaps, but we see the pace is really on now up front, and it is Sporting Club Braga, it looks like, their red vest. And it is indeed Benfica's Edson Barros there, and Nuno Pereira was there, who was powering through. So heading out on the second leg, and of course athletes don't carry a baton in these relays, it's done by wristband. But Benfica running well, Sporting Club de Portugal also running well, Patricia Silva going for them on this leg, but meanwhile it is Teresia Guetteri who is running for Benfica. And that Benfica club really is just so strong. Edson Barros running a very good leg for them to open things up. And now Teresia Guetteri, who's from Kenya, is very accomplished and should be able to extend the advantage here. She is an 8:29 3000 meter athlete, is Guetteri. She has run 14:44 for 5000 meters, and she's a 4:02 1500 meter runner. So strong credentials to bring to this. And Guetteri was the world under 20 3000 meter champion back in 2021. That was in Kenya, that championships in Nairobi. So Guetteri has matured as a senior and has run some very impressive times, and the Benfica athlete looks to be putting her club in a brilliant position. And remember, she will hand off that wristband to Isaac Nader. But no surprise to see it is Sporting Club de Portugal who it is in second, and Patricia Silva is leading the way for them. She took the wristband from Nuno Pereira, and we'll see what she can do, if she can keep Sporting Club de Portugal in contention. As you can see, it's about 2 or 3 seconds now at the moment, but it is in the final event of the day. It's a Portuguese 1-2 at the moment for the clubs in the mixed relay. But how much of a race can they make it? It is DMA, Dessiné Mesure Athlétisme of France back in third, and it is Ennis Track from the Banner County, the west of Ireland, County Clare, who are back in fourth. Still very much in the hunt there for a bronze medal. And they will have Niamh Markham running for them, I believe, in one of the upcoming legs, but current athletes are not quite in the system. It's Nassa Anafin at the moment for Ennis Track back in fourth, trying to close up the ground on Mohamed Halaf of Playa Castellon and Capucine Rolin of DMA, the French club, back in third at the moment, but the gaps are quite considerable at the moment. As you can see, that battle for bronze looks pretty close as we're approaching the halfway point, and it looks like the battle for gold is down to 2, but with Isaac Nader to come and Salom Alfonso, that is a 1-2 punch that there are not many, never mind clubs, there are not many countries in the world that could produce a better mixed relay duet than that. But Nader and Alfonso are to come on the third and fourth legs for Benfica. So barring disaster and barring any injury or falls, it looks like Benfica are going to round out the day with a Portuguese victory in the final event of the day, the mixed relay, because Teresia Gatteri is extending the advantage here over Patricia Silva of Sporting Club de Portugal. And up and over those final few bumps in the road, or bumps on the course, Teresia Gatteri is going to be handing over to Isaac Nader. This is the second last turn, almost a 90-degree turn. A lot of athletes there we've seen throughout the day stealing a quick look, and the wristband is off. She's taking it off her wrist with about 100 meters to run now for Gatteri. She will see Isaac Nader waiting in that red vest of Benfica, SL Benfica, and there is the world 1500 meter champion Isaac Nader, and he sets out with absolute intention. There is 8 seconds it is back to Sporting, the other Portuguese club, and then another 4 seconds back to DMA from France, who are just a few seconds ahead of Ennis Track in that battle for silver and bronze. But it looks like the gold is gone, because Isaac Nader, the last man you would want to see out in front of you if you're one of those rival clubs, the world 1500 meter champion Isaac Nader, is putting on a show here and setting out to try and really crush the hopes of anyone in behind that they might have had. So often it can be the case in these cross-country or long-distance relays whereby the incoming athletes are just tying up, and there's almost a temptation on the outgoing athletes to really set off hard and really try and build that advantage and to just stamp their supremacy and not give anyone a look in to try and catch them or latch onto them. It so often happens that athletes run the opening leg of these relays much quicker than they run the second half of the leg. Of course, all that matters is that you get to the finish, but there is a psychological element to it too, and you can see that here with Nader. Nader has just gone out very hard, and I think he just wants to put this race to bed, and he's of course fit enough and strong enough to hold on to this, but look, he is really attacking all those little turns and those little small inclines. But Isaac Nader, it is José Pinto of Sporting Club de Portugal is giving chase in second, and then from France back in third it is Baptiste Yard, and meanwhile for Ennis Track it will be Mark Hanrahan, who is trying to close down on the medal positions for Ennis Track back in fourth. But right now it is DMA of France in third, Sporting Club de Portugal in second, and this man Isaac Nader and SL Benfica look to be on their way to gold out front. So Isaac Nader, who had the year of his dreams last year. It was such an amazing performance that he unleashed to outkick Jake Whiteman and the rest to that World 1500 meter final in Tokyo. And then strangely enough, Nader, he did change coaches and Afonso. They've been based in Spain for many years in Sarria, training under Enrique Pascual, of course the coach who so many middle distance greats of Spanish athletics over the years, but they did part ways with Pascual towards the end of last year. Isaac Nader has been training a bit with Thomas Lewandowski, the Polish coach, in the winter, but I don't believe there's been any announcement made yet on where he's permanently or going to base himself in a more fixed manner at least. But Isaac Nader has certainly started this year very well, and indeed finished last year very well. That such a memorable year it was, 2025. He won bronze at the European Indoors. He was 4th at the World Indoors in Nanjing in China. And of course that brilliant gold medal at the Worlds in Tokyo, and then rounded off last year with a silver medal lifting Portugal towards the latter end of that race in that mixed relay. It was such a brilliant performance by Nader. He really did bring his very best to that event on home turf in Lagoa in Portugal. And Nader, who was a Moroccan dad, his mum's Portuguese. He was born in Faro, just about 40 kilometers away from here. And he has really put Portuguese athletics back on the map at the very highest level in recent years. And he hands over to his girlfriend, Salome Alfonso. And Alfonso, last year when they both won medals at the European Indoor Championships, Alfonso had posted on Instagram about their relationship and I guess how they support each other and how much it meant to have won a medal at the same championships as their partner. And she said, "We work together, we suffer together, we dream together." And a beautiful line from Alfonso, but she has taken the wristband from Nader and looks to be about to bring glory to Benfica in this race. Looks to be on the cusp of it. And they have quite a considerable advantage now over Sporting Club de Portugal, 15 seconds in arrears. And Afonso, believe me, is not the kind of athlete who would surrender that very easily, because Afonso is a truly accomplished performer as well. The 28-year-old, she's gone below 2 minutes for 800 meters. She's gone below 4 minutes for 1500 meters. That was in Paris last year. She ran a 3:59 1500. She's run 8:39 for 3000 meters, so excellent strength as well. And just recently ran a national indoor record in Ostrava, 4:01.98 for 1500 meters. So she has very much hit the ground running in 2026, has Afonso. And of course was part of that team alongside Nader, who took silver for Portugal at the European Cross Country Championships in Lagoa just about 2 months ago now. But Afonso is an athlete who continues to go from strength to strength. And here she is about to carry, it looks like, Benfica to glory in this mixed relay. And of course they were champions last year as well, Nader and Afonso. They teamed up with Sheila Gibet and Rui Pinto to take glory for Benfica in this, ahead of Playas de Castellón and Sporting Club de Portugal. But the 2 years before that, it was Playas de Castellón took gold. But right now, they're out of the medals race, the Spanish club. Narda Esteller is going to try and get them back into it. They're down in 4. Brilliant shots there with the drone of Salome Afonso, who is continuing to attack this race. She knows that the gold is secured. She's got 10 seconds to spare over Sporting, and it is Purity Chepkarui, the Kenyan, running for Sporting Club de Portugal, who is carrying them to second and is running a strong leg. She's got 14 seconds to spare over Dessine Mezu Atletisme back in third. Capucine Rolin is running the final leg for them. And then further back, Dublin City Harriers back in fourth, and it is Lucy Holmes on the anchor leg for them. So Playas Castellón now down to fifth at that checkpoint, and Ines Track back in sixth. So of the Irish clubs, looks like Dublin City have the better chance of getting amongst the medals. But can Lucy Holmes haul them up to fourth? She is chasing hard Capucine Rolin, and has got quite a few seconds to make up yet, but that battle for bronze is still very much alive. It looks like Sporting Club de Portugal with Purity Jepkarui are pretty safe in second. Big gap back to third, and a big gap out front as well for Salome Afonso, who, look at that, that is a brilliant shot. Side on to those little hills, small bumps on the course, and she just attacks them and runs down off the other side. And I think that advantage, if anything, has extended as well, as we see Purity Jepkarui. And this final leg, and into the home straight, Salome Afonso is on her way to glory. The hard work was done before she got that wristband. Her teammates Edson Barros, Teresia Gatteri, and her boyfriend Isaac Nader, they put her in the brilliant position, but Salome Afonso has brought it home for Portugal and for Benfica. It is a wonderful way to round out proceedings at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country, and in the mixed relay, it is Benfica who are a class apart. Silver goes to Sporting Club de Portugal. It was Purity Jepkarui bringing them into that silver medal position, carrying them home, and now the battle for bronze. It looks like Dublin City Harriers are trying to chase down, but I don't think they're going to get there. It is DMA, Dessiné Mesure Athletisme, who hang on. Capucina Rollin running a brilliant leg there. Just about hold on by a few seconds ahead of Dublin City Harriers. It was Eve Kerr, Lucy Holmes, Paul Delahunty and Philip Marin for Dublin City Harriers, a strong team. Ennis Track come in there across the finish. Back in 5th, plays Castillon. It was Niamh Markham, and then it was Playas de Castillon back in 6th position, just about a minute behind the winners. So no joy in the mixed relay this year for Playas de Castillon. Andrea Castello anchoring them, and it was University Leon Sprint back in 7th, and then LV Winter Tour back in 8th position. But gold goes to Benfica, no surprises there. Nader, Barros, Afonso and Gatteri, just too good for the others. They come home with 16 seconds to spare over Sporting Club de Portugal. And then bronze goes to the French club, Dessiné Mesure Athletisme.
Mayor of Albufeira Municipality, Rui Cristina, Vice President of Albufeira Municipality, Jorge Carlo, and the President of Algarve Athletics Association, Francisco Chupido. Bronze medalists representing the Sporting Club de Portugal.
So presentation time for that senior men's race, and a very memorable race that it was, and a truly outstanding display it was out front by Rodrigo Quezera. Third place, bronze medal, went to Charles Rotich of Sporting Club de Portugal. Silver went to this man. He must be getting a little bit frustrated with silver, but it is still a remarkable achievement. Oscar Chilimo, yet again, finishes as runner-up, but he gave it absolutely everything on the day, and he really did make a bold bid to win that title. But there was no beating this man on the day, Rodrigo Quezera of Playas de Castillon, a powerhouse club in Spain. He has, for the 4th time in 5 years, carried their colours to individual glory at the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. Rodrigo Quezera 10 seconds clear of Oscar Chilimo, and then Charles Rotich back in 3rd for Sporting Club de Portugal.
let's go for the thank you notes. We would like to thank you commercial partners who drove their support and commitment and helped to stage European Champions Cup cross country, where in Albufeira queríamos agradecer a todos os patrocinadores e também instituições que apoiaram e patrocinaram, ajudando que mais o Campeonato da Europa de Clubes se realizasse aqui em Albufeira. Queremos agradecer ao município de Albufeira, também ao Instituto Português de Desporto e da Juventude, à região do turismo do Algarve, à Motopor, à Dizacar, à Rico, também à Line Star Life. A eles o nosso thank you, o nosso muito obrigado.
Confirmation of the result in that mixed relay, and a truly dominant win it was for Benfica. And Rui Costa, the technical director, had mentioned that would be the icing on the cake if they could go 1-2 with Benfica and Sporting in that mixed relay, and indeed they managed to do that. Benfica, a truly dominant performance, 17:44, 16 seconds clear of Sporting Club de Portugal, and then the French club DMA back in third, taking the bronze medal. So a few more presentations just to round out the action at the European Champion Clubs cross country. And the sun has broken through the clouds, or perhaps the clouds or mist have just been burnt off on the southern coast of Portugal. And things are starting to warm up just a little on a beautiful Sunday in the Algarve. Albufeira, pretty much in the middle of the Algarve on the southern coast of Portugal. And now it's presentation time for the senior men's team event. And then it'll just be the mixed relay to come. So in third place in the senior men's, it's going to be Vicky Foods. Then it's going to be Atletica Cazzoni in second from Italy. And then the winner, no surprises, the Spanish club yet again, Playas de Castellón, taking the glory.
In the third place, bronze.
So we're just waiting for that music to finish, I think, or do we have the teams in the wrong order perhaps? I think we do, because the Italian team, Atletica Cazzoni, were actually lined up behind the number 3 there, and they finished second overall, so thankfully someone's noticed that before we started handing out the medals, and they'll be getting into the position, but of course those numbers aren't visible from where they're standing. And 2 and 3 on a lot of podiums are often the same height, so it can be quite confusing to tell when you're standing behind them. But alas, they're now all in the correct position. They should be. So we're pretty much ready now to hand out the medals for the senior men's. And in third place from Spain, it is Vicky Foods. Hope Vicky's proud if she's watching. Abdelsamad Uklefen led them home in 6th place. Abdirahman Aferdi in 10th, and then Javier Polo in 11th rounded out their team scoring. And then it was Vicente Villa back in 21st, rounded out their team performance, and a very hard-earned bronze medal and a trophy, I'm sure, that will take pride of place. The local club in Spain, congrats to them. Felicidades, bronze medal for Vicky Foods in the senior men's race. But the silver is headed to Italy, and it is Atletica Casone Noceto, the Italian club, who took the silver medal with a brilliant performance, led by Oscar Chilimo. An individual silver for him. Mentioned, you can see there, he's got 2 silvers on the right there around his neck. And I mentioned he might be getting a little bit sick of silver, but still better than bronze. But he's got a lot of silvers now from this competition, but he's got 2 more to go with them today, and he looks delighted, and a brilliant performance it was from him. He leads his team to silver with an individual silver as well for Oscar Chilimo. And then it was Luca Alfieri back in 8th position, and then Conginal Maggi back in 13th, and then Enrico Vecchi it was, rounding out their quartet in 20th for Atletica Casone. But the winners, here they are. Playas Castellon, they were the heavy favourites, of course, to take victory. On the left, Rodrigo Quizera, he took victory, and he's got double goals, which he looks to be having a bit of a laugh with Oscar Chilimo about the fact he's got 2 goals and Chilimo has 2 silvers. But good to see the camaraderie there amongst the rivals. The Ugandan and the athlete from Burundi, who should be running for Spain, of course, in the years ahead. He's been living there for many years now. That process is ongoing, but well done to Playas de Castellon. Rodrigo Quizera in 1st, Thierry Ndikamonayu in 5th, Miguel Chazara in 7th, rounding out their team scoring. And then it was David Gomez back in 22nd. He's holding the trophy there. Felicidades to the Spanish club. So the medalists for the senior men's team event, and what a performance it was by Playas Castellon. 1st, 5th and 7th, 13 points. What a tally that is in a race as competitive as this. Atletica Casone Nocero take the silver for Italy, and then Vicky Foods, Spanish club, back in 3rd. So just quick one more presentation to come. Of course, no individual presentation needed for the mixed relay, just a team presentation, and then we'll have a quick look back at some of the highlights and sign off from our coverage here on European Athletics page. And a reminder, if you're looking for your athletics fix across the world, especially in the indoor arena, European Athletics is live streaming a wealth of events this weekend, including today. Femke Ball making her competitive debut over 800 meters. It will be carried live on the European Athletics platforms, and European Athletics live streaming at least 23 events from around the World Indoor Tour through this spring season. So stay tuned to European Athletics social media platforms and indeed the website for details of where you can find all those streams. Delighted to bring you live coverage of the European Champion Clubs cross country this afternoon from Albufeira in Portugal. So some other races just getting underway. But just one presentation we'll have to bring you before we round out the coverage. Thank you very much for joining us over these last few hours, if indeed you dipped in and out or stayed the full way. The coverage from the European Champion Clubs Cross Country. We've seen some really impressive individual performances and indeed teams pulling together. And it was an utterly dominant performance in the concluding mixed relay by the team pretty much everyone suspected would come home in front, but they performed under pressure. Teresia Gatteri, Salome Afonso, Edson Barros and Isaac Nader, utterly dominant, winning the mixed relay by 16 seconds. And the likes of Nader and Afonso certainly didn't rest on their laurels or take anything for granted. Once they got that wristband, they set off, they attacked the race, and they made sure of victory. And what a brilliant victory it is. Portuguese 1-2 in the concluding mixed relay, as we see some of the kids getting warmed up for their races. Always a nervous time. But cross country, one of those great disciplines in the sport that really does teach youngsters an awful lot, particularly about the value of suffering through and dealing with difficulty, because there is no easy path to the finish when it comes to cross country. The disruptions are constant, and even when the ground is good and flat and even running, it still hurts like heck. So those kids, I'm sure, will be getting to blast around that course soon enough in the coming minutes, and we'll just await the medal presentation for the mixed relay, and we'll see Benfica get their gold before we sign off on our coverage from the European Champion Clubs Cross Country for 2026. So we have, of course, individual presentation first up for the senior men's race, which of course had slipped my mind a few minutes ago, but we're going to see Charles Rotich get his bronze. We'll see Oscar Chilimo get a silver, and Rodrigo Quizera get his gold. So, bronze medal in the senior men's race individually goes to Charles Rotich from Sporting Club de Portugal. He was brave, he went for it, didn't quite have enough to match Oscar Chilimo and Rodrigo Quizera, but he wasn't too far away at all off a silver. He was closing down hard on Oscar Chilimo towards the finish, just 3 seconds behind at the end. But this man, who has a wealth of silver medals already, well, he's got another one to go with it now, and a plaque that is also quite silver. As I said, silver is better than bronze, and it is a brilliant achievement to be on a podium at this level. And Oscar Chilimo, who has done so much and won so much in his career, is another worthy accomplishment. But on the day, he came up against an athlete who looked just about unbeatable. Rodrigo Quizera, he knows how to get the job done on this stage. 3 individual titles in the past. He'd also been part of teams 3 times that Playas de Castellón took gold, and today it was the dream combination: individual gold for the 4th time, team gold for the 4th time. What a performance, an utterly dominant final lap. When he changed gears, he did it with great alacrity, speed. Rodrigo Quizera just took off, and the battle for gold to bed very quickly. Rodrigo Cazera, dominant performance, 10 seconds to spare he had at the finish over Oscar Chelimo. He, yet again, for the 4th time in 5 years, he takes individual glory of the European Champion Clubs cross country.
Vamos para a última cerimónia desta longa jornada e entretanto também vamos para o tiro de partida de mais uma competição. É o Campeonato Regional de Estafeta Misto, Sénior, 6.130 metros, 4 voltas médias ao percurso. A primeira vai ser dada dentro de eventos, logo assim então iremos pode para já então a partida.
So from Albufeira, as the kids get warmed up, we're just reflecting on what a brilliant morning and afternoon it has been at the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country. And lots of warm-ups there being done by all the youngsters. A few single leg hops, a few activation exercises going on. And brilliant to see just the twin elements to this event. The kids also getting involved. I'm sure many of them will have been alongside the course there watching the stars. And now they'll also be getting the chance to get out there, fun and games. They do look to have numbers affixed. So action almost completed. The live action we'll be bringing you is completed, but we'll just be staying on air for the podium presentations for that mixed relay, which will be coming up very soon. And here it is at the European Champion Clubs Cup Cross Country, Albufeira 2026. It's time for the presentation for mixed relay. And a great race it was. We suspected it might not be too competitive in terms of the battle for gold because of the class and depth that was in this Benfica team. The race for the silver and bronze was quite wide open, especially that bronze. There was a number of teams loitering around the region of that bronze medal. Dublin City Harriers, Ennis Track Club from Ireland, Playas de Castellón from Spain, which had won this title a number of times in the past. But in the end, the bronze medal went to Dessiné Messieurs Athlétisme, the French club, and their 4 athletes, Baptiste Giard, Valentin Breschke, Veronica Van Cardo and Capucine Rollin, managed to bring it home and get them a brilliant bronze medal at the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country. There they are, Baptiste Giard, Valentin Breschke, Veronica Van Cardo and Capucine Roland. They're very proud. So DMA, as they're widely known, Dessiné Messieurs Athlétisme, and quite a cool design on the singlet there as well. French always bring the style, and they brought the substance as well today, and they had the strength and the speed to unite and get a brilliant bronze medal. Well done to Baptiste Giard, Valentin Breschke, Veronica Van Cardo and Capucine Roland. They are bronze medalists at the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country. Bronze heads back to France. So from Portugal, I mentioned earlier that the technical director of the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country, Rui Costa, had said that we hope to have Benfica or Sporting as the men's champions, Braga in the women's, and to have both Benfica and Sporting top 2 in the relay. Well, Benfica didn't manage to get it done, or Sporting in the men's senior race, given Playas de Castellón put on a clinic there. But Braga did get it done in the women's, and he got the icing on the cake he wanted, a Portuguese 1-2 in the mixed relay. And it was Sporting Club de Portugal finishing second, Jose Pinto, Nuno Pereira, Patricia Silva and Purity Chepkarui 18 minutes on the clock for them. They were in splendid isolation really in second over that final lap. Purity Jepkarui steering them home. Patricia Silva, impressive as well. Patricia Silva, run from her on leg 2. But they had to make do with silver on the day because there was simply no beating this team. Benfica, they came, they saw, they conquered. It was always going to be very, very difficult to beat a team of this quality. It is the kind of potency within a club that is very, very tough to beat. Edson Barros there on the left. He led them off brilliantly. Salome Alfonso. She's second in the lineup there, but she was on the anchor leg. Teresia Guetteri ran a brilliant second leg as well, just getting that man on the right, Isaac Nader, into position. And he just built that advantage, as indeed did his partner, Salome Alfonso. Bringing it home, a brilliant gold medal and a well-earned trophy. Yet again, Benfica are the champions of the mixed relay at the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country. Trophy goes in the air. Teresia holds it aloft. And beaming with pride yet again. Edson Barros. Isaac Nader, Salome Alfonso alongside her. Just pose for a picture. And Benfica, brilliant once again in the mixed relay at the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country. What a performance it was. We said the director wanted icing on the cake to finish things off. A Portuguese 1-2. That's exactly what they got. And now that the course has opened up to some of the more juvenile competitors, they're going around it and we get a shot of our champ. So we'll have a quick look back at some of the earlier action, and this was the under-20 women's race where it was Sandra Fernandez of Atletica Lucense who really set her stall out early and attacked it, coming home in front of her compatriot Marta Grau of Playas Castellon, fellow Spanish athlete. The under-20 men's race, well, this was just an exhibition by Franklin Quebet of Sporting Club de Portugal. That is Guillaume Sanz there in second. He put up a good chase for Playas Castellon, but no matching the brilliance of Quebet out front. Then it was on to the senior women's race, and this was a brilliant contest. Miriam Cherop coming home out front in the overall race, but Jacqueline Rotich taking gold at the European Champion Clubs Cup ahead of Elvini Nimbona. And then finally, well, individually anyway, that senior men's race was a brilliant battle between Oscar Chilimo and Rodrigo Quezera, but in the end it was the Playas Castellon athlete who didn't just take individual gold, he also carried Playas de Castellon to team success. Then finally all that was left is the mixed relay, and perhaps the biggest star of all competing at the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country was Isaac Nader. And he took the baton, or the wristband, he took it out front and he continued to attack on the third leg, handed over to his partner Salome Alfonso, and she very much was impressive, bringing it home and bringing Benfica to a very comfortable win yet again in the mixed relay to round out a fantastic day of action in Albufeira, Portugal, on the Algarve coast at the European Champion Clubs Cup cross country. But that's just about does it. Thank you very much for joining us over the last few hours. It's been a pleasure to take you through this year's action. But yeah, as we look at those overhead shots of the Algarve and of Albufeira, it's been a pleasure to take you through the action. But from me, Cathal Dennehy, for now, it's goodbye.
Esta transmissão foi patrocinada por Câmara Municipal de Albufeira, Instituto Português do Desporto e Juventude e Turismo do Algarve.